In 2015, a comic shop fell, a community united, and a podcast was born.
You're driving along the road and you see a squirrel trying to cross the road. And he sees you, but he decides to try to get across the road anyway. Maybe partway through, he looks at you again and decides he's not going to make it. So he turns around and goes back to the sidewalk. But then he decides, maybe I can make it. And he turns around and goes back. And he goes back and forth. As you get closer and closer, and next thing you know, you've flattened him. If he had just gone across the road instead of hesitating, he'd be alive. But now he's a flat squirrel.
That was 100 episodes ago. And now, welcome to the 100th episode of My Comic Shop History. I am your host, Anthony Desiato. Joining me to kick things off is my dear friend, alternate realities legend, Dr. Bill Mayo.
I'm so glad to be here, Anthony. Thanks for having me, as always.
It's
I can't believe it's been 100 episodes.
100 episodes. It took 6 years because we only do
unbelievable.
You know, we only do so many per year. But I've long enjoyed the season model, or more recently, the event series or mini-series model. And, you know, we do a select number of episodes per year on a distinct topic. So as a result, it's taken 6 years to get to 100 episodes, but I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, there you go. It's great.
You know, 100 episodes with no filler. I mean, everything you produce, it's wonderful content.
Well, I appreciate that. Hopefully the audience feels the same. And on that note, let me say this, because there will be a number of thanks as we're going through this episode. But, you know, I really want to thank the audience. You know, the first season of this podcast, right, about the fall of AR, that's something I probably would have done even if no one listened, because I needed to do it. But had it not had the response that it did, and if people didn't stick around, you know, moving forward, yeah, I don't know if we would have made it to episode 100. So I really want to thank everyone who has listened and participated in this in any way. I certainly want to thank all of the guests who have been part of the show over the years. But this has been immensely, you know, personally and creatively fulfilling. I've just enjoyed it so much. And yeah, the fact that we're here at 100 really means the world to me. I don't know that we'll hit 200. Like, I feel like we're closer to, far closer to the end than the beginning, but still, it's exciting.
You said that a couple of times, though, so I don't think that's true.
I know. I was going to bring this up. I'm glad you did. So we've done a few finales over the years. You've been part of most of them. And I think I've learned my lesson now, because, you know, at the end of the first season, I had this big wrap up. And then, you know, at the end of season 5, again, it was like the end of the AR saga.
But you wanted to take a break then. And that's the thing. But then you had some new content to drive, you know, another season or so.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But I have learned my lesson. So, you know, right now, of course, we're in the midst of the longer Halloween. You were my guest on part 1. You'll be back for part 13, the conclusion. When we get to that conclusion in a few months, I won't end it on such a definitive note. It'll be a little more open-ended because I keep coming back because I do enjoy doing it. So, yeah, I think I've learned my lesson.
There's a lot of stuff to mine. You know, I mean, I think you still haven't hardly scratched the surface, really. I mean, I know we've talked a lot. You've had a lot of people on, but there's still so much more. I was talking to my brother a little before this phone call, and he's like, "Oh, I would love to be on the podcast." I'm like, "Oh, I'll ask Anthony. That's probably one side of AR that you don't know yet." You know, I think there's still a lot to be discussed if you want to keep going that way.
That's true.
And don't forget, maybe there's a Jeff Wong interview coming up. I mean, there's been that sighting by Brian O'Day. So
yeah, that came up in his episode of The Longer Halloween. That Jeff Wong works at a Chinese restaurant. I think around where Brian lives.
Yeah, that's what I think. He said something like that. He'd been there a few times and confirmed.
I still feel like, if and when Jeff ever makes it onto the show, that'll be the end. I feel like but so maybe it's good if we don't have him on, because then it's just like, we'll just keep going and it'll just always be out. Because I feel like once that happens, that's it. I feel like, as much as you're true, I mean, you're right. I mean, I haven't had your brother on. There are definitely other people within the AR realm to talk to, but I feel like Jeff is like that one big piece who hasn't been represented yet on here. And I feel like if we ever get there, then that'll be it. So we'll keep him out there.
for sure.
Yeah. So a couple of things I want to ask you. You know, you've been on the show a bunch of times over, you know, numerous seasons and miniseries and things like that. Do you happen to have a favorite appearance that you've made on the show?
Oh, Anthony, I mean, not even to prepare for that. I mean, the time that me, you, and Steve were in alternate realities, like in the final weekend, had to be the greatest. For me, at least, it was emotionally charged. That episode, I've gone back and listened to that episode several times, trying to put myself in that mindset of what it was like during those final days. It's definitely the best for me, at least. I mean, every episode I'm on with you is enjoyable, but for sure that was incredible.
Yeah, there was something very, you know, I know you've used the phrase lightning in a bottle about, you know, alternate realities, but yeah, there was really something about that, just that raw emotion being in the store in those really like final moments. So, you know.
It was a heartbreaking time. And anybody who's listened to this saga from the start until now, hopefully they get a sense of that. I mean, the store meant a lot to us, and you know, coming in from New Mexico to help, you know, decommission in a sense the store or put it in dry dock, whatever metaphor you want to use. If we're using like the crab boat metaphor, yeah, I mean, it was painful that whole weekend, and I think it was really fitting that we did it in the store because I think we had traditionally going to your apartment to do those podcasts back then, and so that might have been one of the first kind of like on the scene, on location recordings. I don't know if that's true or not, but
it's
it was
actually
nice that you did it there.
So it's actually flipped. So for the first season, they were almost all recorded at alternate realities. The only exception, I think, was the Brandon episode where I went to his apartment in the city.
Okay.
But
all right, so my mistake.
But that's an interesting point. And yeah, I don't know, people might have a sense of this, but yeah, the entire first season we recorded at the store. And I mean, logistically, I think that it made it easy. Everyone knew the store. Everyone knew where to go. We had the space. We did it after hours. It was convenient. But, you know, week after week, as the store emptied out slowly until you got there, but you know, as the store emptied out, but just being surrounded by everything, it really lent itself to the conversation. And I'm glad we did it that way. In subsequent seasons, you know, I've gone to other shops. Obviously, I've done episodes there. And then more recently, I've been doing them, well, pre-pandemic, I was having people over to my place, and now I've been doing them remotely. And that works too. But yeah, for that run of episodes in particular, I really think being at the shop made a huge difference.
Oh, for sure. I'll never forget that. And like I said, I go back to that episode often.
That's great to hear. I think for a lot of people that, you know, that one stands out. Yeah, that was our big, tearful farewell to the shop.
You know, getting teary-eyed thinking about it.
I know, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, but is there an episode that you were not on that you really wanted to be?
Oh, what's the answer to that?
The original art episode from season 2.
Oh, you know, I think I have a lot to contribute when it comes to original art.
You do.
I would love to do one with you.
Yeah.
If you ever want to go that direction again.
Yeah. I mean, so for the record, you know, again, now I've been doing all these remote recordings, but at the time I was only doing them in person. You know, otherwise I obviously would have had you there, but yeah, no, I'm sure you would. And they're, you know, people, that's one of our highest rated episodes.
Right. I remember listening to that. And I think Phil was a big participant in that episode, correct?
Yeah, it was Phil, Tom, and Drew.
Right. And so, you know, Drew and I kind of were collecting around the same time. Drew was doing a lot of his, you know, Infinity War type pages. I was doing a lot of the commissions, and I haven't really been active collecting in years. So it was really interesting hearing Phil's perspective of the hobby, you know, at the time I was listening to the episode, like the current state of affairs of the hobby. And it was completely different than what I, you know, knew and grew up in. And so it was a fun episode. I would have loved to have been part of it for sure. I would also have loved to be a part of any Rich Roney / Drew Cheskin episode. So if you ever want to have another person in the room, let me know.
Well, thankfully we did have you on with Rich and Steve for the season 5 finale. But yeah, I've not had you on with Drew, and I'm sure that, you know, well, so that's another thing. We could do an AR for future events. It could be like an AR team up hour sort of thing where we have different combinations of people. There are always ways to keep it going. We could always justify it.
You can milk this forever. I'm telling you, 200 episodes, it's gonna a walk in the park, Anthony.
Though at the same time, and I think part of the reason why I always sort of like to have a finale is, I want to be mindful of knowing when to get off the stage, and I don't want to like bleed this thing dry, and if, again, I feel like we've covered so much AR wise, and even if there is stuff that we haven't gotten to, I think that's okay. Like if there's a teeny tiny little bit of mystery that might still remain, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder, what like a listener who's current with the podcast listens intently, what they must feel like not being able to visit this magical place that we talk about. I wonder. I don't even know. I mean, I know how I feel about it, but we talk about it so much. It's like it would be great to have it still. But as you've discussed during your podcast and even your movie, there are glimpses of alternate realities scattered throughout this country. So, which I think is great.
It's true. And yeah, I mean, I hope that for people who have gotten to, and that's the thing that's, I think, so special about not just this but podcasting in general, and what the form allows is like people have gotten to know our community and our store, even though they may have never met us in person, and even though the store doesn't exist and they may have never been there. That's really cool.
No, I absolutely. And I don't know if there's any other store out there that's like that. I mean, I think you're the one person who's like, pumping the store that doesn't exist anymore. There's no other podcast like it. I don't know where I was going with that. Maybe cut that.
That's fine. No, it is really funny, right? Because you and I are both, for anyone who might be watching this on YouTube, like you and I are both wearing alternate reality shirts. Like
I wear them every day, like almost every day of my life. I'm wearing an AR shirt.
But you make them, and actually the one that I'm wearing is one of the original run of shirts that Steve made, in 2007. Yeah? But
those are rare items.
But like you've made so many variations of the shirt, far more than ever existed before.
I'm wearing the Batman shirt one. Yeah, I think.
Very nice. But it's so funny to me because it's like, and I think it might have been Metalhead who initially pointed this out, but it's like the store has more like merchandise and promotion now that it doesn't even exist.
I know.
So
no, you're 100% right.
It's funny too, because I had wanted to do a podcast, to be honest, probably as far back as when I made the documentary about alternate realities. I remember that summer after making the movie, I was like, the creative juices were flowing, and I was like, I would do a podcast. And I didn't do it because I guess I didn't know exactly what it would be about, and I didn't know if people would listen, and that's not a good reason to not do it. And for anyone out there who's thinking about doing a podcast, just do it. You never know what'll come of it, and if nothing else, you'll connect with the people you're doing the podcast with, and there's something about that, and just expressing yourself and putting something out there in and of itself, I think, can be worthwhile. But I wanted to do it, and part of that is a little bit of a regret. I mean, obviously, I'm glad we at least did it when the store was ending. That was, obvious. That certainly made sense to do it then. But yeah, I do wish that I had been podcasting, about AR from AR, while the store was still there. I think that would have been cool.
Oh, absolutely. Might have changed everything, Anthony.
Don't say that.
I'm not saying that. Well, you forced me to think of what if I never came into New York that time and the store would still be there.
Oh man. So listen, here's what's coming on this episode, right? I have
before you get into that, I don't mean to be rude.
It's okay.
As Rich Roney would say. I want to unpackage what you just said a second ago about, talking to people through the podcast. And maybe this feeds into what you're going to say. So some of the people that you have on the podcast regularly, like Sean Hendricks, Lord Retail, I assume you met them for the first time through the movie or the auspices of the movie, but now through the podcast, you've kind of come to know them in a different sense. I don't know if that's true or not, but how do you feel about that? Like, you've gotten to become very good friends with these guys. And it's through this format.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, those guys in particular, you mentioned, I met them first because of the podcast. And then that grew into the movie, and certainly that, further solidified the friendships. But Yeah, I mean, there are obviously a lot of people connected to alternate realities who have been part of my comic shop history, and they're people I've, obviously already knew. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, there are a lot of people I've met as a result of as a direct result of doing this, people I would not have crossed paths with, become friends with otherwise. There are plenty of people who have been on the show who, like nothing more necessarily came of it. There are people I've like really never had any exchanges with since, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's rare, to be honest. And I would say for the most part, even if it's more of a, like a Facebook friendship, but there's communication, and that's great. And then there are the people like Jermaine, like Sean, like a number of others who, we're truly friends. And the fact that came about because of this is really special. And it's another reason why, again, like I was saying before, it's I'm so glad I did this, even if people hadn't listened. Although if they hadn't listened, those people in particular, then I wouldn't have met them. But you know what I mean?
Of course. Anyway, sorry for interrupting you.
No, but that's a great point. And yes, that does dovetail into what I was going to say, which is this episode features, in addition to you, sir, a quartet of special guests you'll be meeting over the next couple of hours. And this episode is not necessarily very alternate reality centric. The reason being we are currently in the midst of our longer Halloween event. So I've been reconnecting with the AR gang over the course of that. And for this episode, I really was thinking about the phenomenon you just brought up, people who I've really met and become friends with as a direct result of doing this podcast. And that's really what I wanted to celebrate over this 100th episode. And the people you're going to hear from, I think, also do represent some of the, I'm going to sound like Rich Roney here, but different eras of the podcast, because they each kind of came in at a different point.
Yeah.
And spoke to something a little bit different, all obviously within the realm of comic shops, but they, each kind of have their own area there. So we're talking about friendships and different eras. I mean, I really feel like this is Rich Roney's influence.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great lineup, that you have in store for this episode. And if I could just speak about two of those guys. So I have never met in person Sean or Jermaine. However, I gave phone calls to both of these guys, and this was in the last couple of months. And so I called up Sean, who runs Fat Moose Comics, and I call him up. I said, "Hey, I'm looking for Sean," and the first thing out of his mouth, he's like, "I know that voice. I've only heard this voice through the computer." And he was so excited to be talking to me. And I was super excited to be talking to him. And I guess through the podcast, we were like instant friends. It was like I was talking to him, and Anthony, I swear to God, I had a conversation with him that was probably 40 minutes. And it was like I was talking to an old friend. It was kind of an incredible experience. And he 110% would have been one of the guys on, a Saturday night at the alternate realities dinners. I mean, he's an incredible individual. And I'm looking forward to hanging out with him in person. He had mentioned also that you're planning on doing like a Wednesday kind of like diamond unpacking day, or maybe a Thursday. I said, count me in. I'll fly across the country for that. So you got to let me know when you guys decide to do it.
That will be amazing. Yeah. If we could coordinate, oh man, that would be, I mean, I was already looking forward to it, but that would really, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, he was a great guy. I also placed a phone call with Jermaine, and it was the same thing. We just had a really good conversation. And again, it was because of you that, all the barriers were just completely torn down. I mean, it was like I was talking to an old friend. He knew me from the movie. Obviously I know him from the movie and the podcast, and it was like two friends connecting after a long time, but I had never met either of those guys before in person or even on the phone. So it was a lot of fun. And I appreciate, what you did there. That you didn't even realize, but you've done that. You'd allowed us to connect like that. It was like a real connection.
No, I appreciate hearing that. That is really, really cool. And especially since we don't have the shop that facilitated the forming of so many friendships. Like, it's nice that the podcast can achieve what you're describing, and
I never even knew that was possible.
It's the power of podcasting, man.
I'm telling you.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's really beautiful. And I guess on that note, let's meet our first guest for our 100th episode.
I can't believe I'm still here. It's been a lifetime since I tried to forget. This can't be all that it means everything to me. I have a new life and I can't ever look back.
My first guest is the owner of Undiscovered Realm in White Plains, New York, Chris Wilcock. Welcome, sir.
Hey, what's up? Long time no see.
You're not kidding. We've texted over the past year plus, but this is the first time since, I don't know, February, March 2020 that we've actually spoken.
Yeah, for sure. It's been that long. It's crazy.
So how's it
Feels
going?
like a couple months and like 10 years all at the same time. Yeah, it's going. It's been a weird year. We never really stopped moving, so like, I don't know. I feel like I have a different perspective on everything than a lot of people because, like, if anything, things ramped up for us during the pandemic, which is crazy. I don't know how it got busier, but it did. And aside from like a week or two at the beginning there where everything was just shut down, we've been going nonstop. So, yeah, it's been a blur. But like I said, it feels like a decade, but, a month at the same time.
Yeah, no,
How are you?
I do understand. Yeah, no, all good, honestly, in the most important ways. So
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. The thing I wanted to ask you, because obviously you've been on the show a bunch of times, and for people who have listened to your earlier appearances, they know how big conventions are for you, the conventions that you run and the conventions that you attend as a vendor. And of course, for the most part over the past year plus, you've not had that. So I would imagine listeners would be curious, as am I, how have you managed, over all this time without those conventions?
Yeah. So, that was a weird thing. And speaking of conventions, like we did C2. So we have like a break from like November to basically like March every year. So it's like 4 months. There's nothing. And then C2E2 or Ohio are usually the first ones of the year. So we left, we went to C2E2. We were the 100,000 human beings, like right when all this started breaking and the, rumor, oh, hey, maybe, there's some in America, blah, 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 blah. And then we went straight from there to Cleveland, and we did Wizard World. And then we came home and like 2 days later, literally the entire country just stopped and shut down. So it was even more of a switch for us because we were like literally in a room with, like I said, 100,000 people to, you can't even see your neighbor. So yeah, it was weird. It was really scary because we didn't know what we were going to do at first. Income wise, all the bills are due, but there's no money coming in. And at that point, like we couldn't even have the store open. It was just, yeah, it was scary times. And it seems crazy to think about looking back, but like at that time, I don't know if you remember, but everyone's like, oh, it's going to be done in a couple weeks. Everything will be back. We figured conventions would start up again around May or June. And we had our show in May and we were still planning on doing it at that point, in March. So, it wasn't until like a month later where we were like, maybe this isn't going to happen. So luckily, I saw the writing on the wall early on and we pivoted really hard. I used those 2 weeks, like I said, where there was just nothing going on. And I redid our website. I like super went into SEO and Google and, we always had online obviously, but it was, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of our sales, it was all in person or at conventions and stuff. And I just never had the time to really do what I had to do. So I'm stuck at home. Let me be productive. And that's what we did. And thank God, because obviously, we're 18 months later and yeah, it paid off in dividends. Like our online exploded. And, part of that because we redid everything, we adjusted all our prices, we got super competitive. And then also everyone was sitting home with nothing to do and they got some free money from the government and, and there was luckily for so many people were struggling, which is sad, but there was a lot of people who, were working the whole time too and, had more money than normal. So, and I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the collectible market over the last year, but it has been bonkers. I want to say like every person on this planet took their government check and bought Pokemon cards or pops or action figures, you name it, because everything's just doubled and tripled and quadrupled in price. And so, as crazy as it is to say, we came out of the pandemic much better than we went in. And, I thank my stars for that, but it is what it is, and it paid off. So I'm happy we're still here. We're bigger than ever. We redid the entire store. We changed the game area. We put up more retail. We ordered more products. It worked out.
Good. No, I'm so glad to hear that. And I've heard similar things from other retailers. The back issue market's really strong. I've been hearing from shops. They've been getting, new customers they've never seen before, people from out of town, out of state. I think that especially now as people are getting back out there, it's like they want to see something, new and different.
100%. Yeah. And I think people are, and I'm sure for every person that's like chomping at the bit to get out there, there's probably 10 that are just still, real weary about things. But the ones that are out there, they're out there, I got to say. And yeah, I don't know if it's just a byproduct of Google, because now we show up on, like, if you search for, like, I need a toy, it's going to say, hey, this store is, close by, and this is what it has. And, we've seen a huge influx of new customers. I mean, we had a guy come in yesterday from Buffalo. He was like, oh, I was driving down this way and I heard about you guys. And like I said, I was like, thanks, thanks for coming in from like 10 hours away. So it's pretty cool. There's been a lot of that. So yeah, I think it's been that way across the board for most stores, I think.
That's good. No, it's great. Look, people are always real quick to want to call a time of death on comic shops and collectible shops.
Yeah.
And, when all of this went down, it was like, our shop's going to survive. And I know not all of them did, but it's great to hear stuff like this. And I saw, and I've talked about this in other episodes, but like just so many instances of shops doing exactly what you just described, pivoting and figuring out like, okay, like what can we do? So leaning more into mail order and, on, Instagram live sales and like all that stuff. And it's great to see. And I'm happy that it's paid off.
Yeah, for sure. I think, and it pains me to see anybody close their doors, and there definitely were some that did. And, somebody said to me, the pandemic basically accelerated everything by 2 years. Like everything that was going to happen anyway has happened. So, stores that were on the ropes, unfortunately, it really pushed them over the edge. And, stores that might've been growing, as long as they played their cards right, it accelerated that way past where they are. They said e-commerce grew like, I don't even know what the actual numbers, but like 5 years ahead of schedule right now or something like that. And everything's scrambling to catch up. So, yeah, it's good and bad. Again, I'm very sad to see anybody go out of business, but
yeah, of course.
Hopefully they were able to come. And, going back to conventions, I'm really curious to see who's there when they happen, not just attendee wise, but just stores. Like, how many stores never made it through? How many had to get a different job? I know so many people working at supermarkets or something because they had to have some money coming in, and that's a rough job. It's hard work, and give everyone all the credit in the world. But a lot of people either sold off all their stock and they don't do it anymore, or they realize, when you had a forced break and you were out of the cycle, like, yeah, maybe this isn't for me, and I'm gonna do something else. Or their online exploded and they don't need to do shows, or you name it. And I've seen, like, even looking at floor plans for upcoming conventions and stuff as things start to get planned and stuff, like, oh yeah, that place went out of business. Oh yeah, this space opened up, they're not doing shows anymore. So I'm really curious to see, if we get to New York Comic Con and it happens, and what's it look like? Who's there, who's left, and how many people. I've talked to 50 people that are like, I'm not doing any shows this year. I'll see what happens, and then next year we'll reboot. And I get that too. I'm kind of, as much as I love shows, I'm not looking forward to, like figuring it all out again. We're kind of rusty. We haven't opened our trailer since last March, which means we have some hidden gems in there, I'm sure. And I'm not looking forward to the traveling and the setup and the breakdown. I love doing it. I love seeing everybody. That's going to be really nice. But and being home with my son for the last year has been like a godsend, which was the greatest thing that happened during the pandemic, because I was home for everything, every first word and step, and you name it. And it's going to be a lot harder leaving now that he can say, hey daddy, where are you going, than it was when he was just a ball sitting in a crib. So
listen, I identify with that so much. I mean, the last time you and I podcasted, our sons are just a few months apart, and they were a lot smaller then, and we were comparing notes, in that podcast, and obviously they've gotten a lot bigger. But No, I mean, I'm with you. Like that's been the unexpected blessing of this is just having all this time. I mean, like, and my wife and I, like, we've been working from home 100%
Yeah.
since this started. So it's like, we're with him every day. So yeah, to sort of kind of move away from that is tough.
It's going to be weird, yeah, and I'm thankful for it. It definitely, and I'm also thankful that they were the age they were because they don't know.
Yeah.
They have no idea, and they're just starting. At least for Jameson, and I'm sure your son's the same thing. Just starting to notice things in the world, where everything's opening back up. So it's going to be a perfect seamless transition, barring any catastrophes. So yeah, I'm thankful for that as well. It couldn't have been a better age. I can't imagine people who had like 6 and 7 year olds that all of a sudden didn't go to school, didn't have friends, didn't go outside, losing their mind in their house. So it's got to be rough. My hats off to those parents.
I know I've had that same thought as well. It's like same thing. It's like I'm glad he was the age that he was going through this. And more recently, we started taking him to this outdoor music class that's organized by some families where we live. And it's like, we were a little worried because it's like he hasn't been around other kids, and we were like, what's he gonna be like? How, is he gonna know? And he took to it like he loves it. He's like yelling and dancing. He follows the music instructor around. Like he goes up to, like, he's so into it, and he loves it. And it really put us at ease because there was a little bit of that fear of like, after being inside all this time.
100%. I mean, he saw his cousins a little bit. His birthday was in July last year, so we had a birthday party, but just family. But like seeing him adapt. One thing we noticed, like we went during the pandemic. Once it calmed down a little bit, we went to our friend's house, and he had just started walking, and their daughter's right around the same age, like within a month or two, I believe. And she hadn't been walking yet, and or even trying. And they're like, oh, I don't know why, blah, blah, blah. She saw him walking, and like the next day started walking. And, and then he would go to his older cousin's house. They would do something. Next day he starts doing it. And that really drove the point home to me of like, wow, what are they missing out on? Because they're not learning all these things, are they going to be, behind on certain things, or are they not going to figure out? And, but yeah, like I said, we took him to the bouncy place earlier, and, he's just running around up to strangers and, having a ball, like he did it the whole time. And like, he couldn't figure out how to go up a slide last time. And then he saw all the other older kids doing it. Now today he's zooming up and down the slide the whole time. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I know. That's awesome. Just jumping back to what you were saying before about, thinking that this was going to end quickly. I mean, I'm on the record, right? Because I was in the middle of my homecoming miniseries of my comic shop history, where Alternate Realities was going to return as a vendor at Undiscovered Con in 2020. And, we did a couple of episodes, and then, again, everything shut down. But like you said, at that time, we, thought it would open back up. So, I mean, there are episodes where I'm like, at the moment, we're hoping that everything will be fine by May, but we'll monitor the situation. It's like, my God, we're now past.
But everybody was in the same boat. Yeah, but it's so crazy thinking back that we even thought that was going to be possible. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's unprecedented, right?
So I don't know. I don't know.
A lot of kinks and a lot of plans.
Exactly. So now I don't know if you want to even get into this yet, but so have you thought about, I mean, I'm sure you have thought about, is there anything you can share about any potential plans for Undiscovered Con in the future?
Yeah. I mean, people are starting to, we'll get a message every couple of days like, hey, what's going on? I haven't. I mean, I knew at the beginning of this year, like I was like, there's no way I'm doing, even if this disappears tomorrow, like I'm not running a show. There's just, under the best of circumstances, you're working on razor thin margins. You're dealing with nightmares, like I can't imagine with any uncertainty whatsoever. Also, like, now it seems like everything's gonna be open 100%, blah, blah, blah. But like, if you even had to do like 80% capacity, you're screwed. Like that's, you might as well not even do the show, short of taking a loss just to keep the momentum going. It's not worth it. And it takes so long. Like, I can work pretty quick, but you still need like 6 months at least, preferably a year, but like, it's just not doable, and then it's like, what guests are out there? Who's going to do shows now? And this is another big problem. And we're running into this already. All these shows are rescheduling, and they're just all falling on top of each other. So it's like, well, I got these 3 shows that I paid for a year ago. I can't do all 3 of them. What do I do? And some of them are better than others with letting you roll over. Some are not. Some places, I don't even know if they're coming back. You might have just lost your money. It sucks, and that was painful for us too, because like I said, we were 2 months away from running our show last year. So like we had we chose, I mean, I could have rolled everyone over. as a fellow vendor, I know what everyone's going through. Like $500 back in your pocket right now might be like getting 10,000. So it's like we refunded everybody. I didn't want to deal with rolling it over. I didn't want to deal with the uncertainty. Here's your money back. But it hurt. I mean, like we were, had no income coming in, and we had to refund, tens of thousands of dollars. So I'm glad I did it. It was the right thing to do. It made life 10 times easier. But there's shows now that, yeah, and if we were any closer, there's shows that were going to happen a couple weeks later. They already spent all that money on marketing and non-refundable costs. So that money's gone. So like, your hands are kind of tied. Like you can't, it's not like they're trying to screw people over, but they also can't, make money appear out of thin air. So I feel like we got everything worked out as best as it could, but yeah, so I guess also our venue is still a vaccine site. So like,
Right.
What are they going to do there? Is it going to be like that for the next 6 months? Is it going to not be? Are they going to be back to doing shows? We have no idea. We haven't heard anything. So I can't plan anything. So we'll see what happens. And, but I kind of need to know in the next month or two, because I got to start working on next year, even 10 months away. Right. So, yeah. And I had a couple ideas too about using some other venues. There's a lot of empty space, a lot of places now. A lot of places went out of business. So I want to look into some things, maybe do something else. So we'll see.
Cool. Well,
We'll report back.
yeah. Well, I'm excited, whatever and whenever, this happens, I'm excited and happy to help however I can and spread the word and all that good
Sure.
stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course. Jumping back to this podcast and your history on it. I mean, you made your debut here in season 2 for the King of Pops episode. And, you've continued appearing, every season since, and I've lost count now of how many you've done. And we did a 4-part Patreon miniseries. Like we've done a bunch.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, do you have a favorite appearance of yours on the show?
Yeah, to be honest, they all kind of blur together, and not in like a bad way. Like, oh, I don't care about it. To me, it's like one big conversation. So like, I don't know which is which. I guess the 4-part. It's always nice to like really be able to dial in on things a little more specifically. Obviously, this is going to be like the shortest thing we've ever done. So kind of just have to have broad strokes. But I like getting into the nitty gritty of things.
Yeah, I love.
So I'll go with that.
When we did that, yeah, Never Stop, Never Popping. That was definitely a highlight for me. Among our conversations, as much as I have enjoyed all of them, but that was so cool. Really, just kind of getting to peel the layers back and I guess recognize certain things that you and I have in common that we wouldn't have necessarily known right off the bat, like dealing with that early shyness and stuff like that. So yeah, that was really cool. Looking ahead, as you know, and as people who've been following me know, it's been quite a content boom in recent months for me. I've been doing a lot of
It's been cool.
podcasting. It's been fun. Honestly, I mean, it's kept me busy and it's given me a creative outlet, and it's allowed me to have conversations with people where I'm not otherwise seeing them. So, and it's been a fun period of experimentation for me with the podcast, and finally delving into video podcasts, which I know is something that you had been an advocate of.
I'm just happy to see it.
So, I've been trying out a bunch of different things, and now some of the shows will kind of be winding down, and I'll really be focusing on the Superman show, Digging for Kryptonite primarily. But I like the idea of sort of doing like special event series, just like 6 or 8 episode things on topics that I might be interested in, and I just want to have the conversations. So there's something
that's cool.
There's something I'll be doing, I think, a little bit later this year. And then, next year, you and I had talked about this, and I think maybe next year will be the time to do it. But I want to do something on Power Rangers.
Oh, yeah.
And there are a few other people who I would want to get involved, but you would be my main guy. And I think that between the, the new comic book series, which has been very well received, as well as those old Mighty Morphin episodes that we remember so fondly, I feel like, I don't know, those are just some conversations I would love to have, because when I've gone back and I've rewatched some of those episodes, it's like just fascinating to revisit with adult eyes, and I think we would have some fun conversations.
Of course. Yeah. I definitely, I would love to do that. And I think that's something that could be really cool, because, we could get some of them Rangers as guests probably pretty easily, because I have direct lines with a lot of them. So.
That's right. You sure. Yeah, you do. I know that could really kick things up a notch. So, so I think that's something to kind of, maybe people could look forward to that in the future. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, I have to confess, right? So you came on the show initially to talk about Pops, and every time you've been on the show since, we've talked about Pops, and I think my pop days have kind of passed.
It happens. It happens.
But it's not, I don't, I have nothing against pops, and I think they're awesome, and I encourage people to collect them, and I encourage them to go to your website and get them from Undiscovered Realm. I think a couple of things happen, and I feel like the 100th episode is an appropriate place to talk about it, as we're kind of looking back, and, since you and I have talked about pop so much, I think it's been a function of a few things. One is space. Like, we moved just about a year ago, and we have a lot more space than we did before in that one bedroom apartment.
Yeah, you should have more.
There's more space, but like we've already put up a lot of artwork and photos and stuff like that in the living room. And as much as in our old place, and you saw this, the pops were on floating shelves in the living room, I don't know that Steph is totally looking to replicate that here. And so the main, and I'm not laying this at her feet, but I don't know that that's her vision for the space. So my main area, as I'm looking around here, is in the home office in Flat Squirrel Studios. And I have a lot of stuff up already. I mean, there's acoustic paneling and there's artwork and there's bookshelves. There's still some rooms I can get a good amount of them up, but I don't know how much the collection can really afford to grow. And especially now that I sort of know...
Your hands are tied, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, because for a long time it was like, well, I don't have the room to display all of them now, but in the future. But now I really have a pretty clear sense of the space I'm going to be working with for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. There's no more question mark. Hey, look, I get it. It happens.
So...
there's always going to be something. They'll come out with something that you're like, I got to get that. Like, what if they make Smallville Wave 2?
If they do Smallville Wave 2, I'll get that.
See,
but
there's always something. Yeah.
Yeah. But to be honest, I think that's the other thing that I kind of am butting up against is that, in the beginning, it was just so cool that and you and I have talked about this, right? That for a lot of properties, TV shows and movies in particular, this might be the only collectible that's available for that show. So it was so cool.
Happens all the time. Yeah.
But now I just feel like almost everything gets popped. So it's lost a little bit of its luster for me. Like when they announce something, it's not so much like, oh, wow, I can't believe there are pops for that. It's just sort of like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, of course they're doing pops for that.
Yeah. You expected that. No, I agree 100%. It's like, how have they not made these shit? What's going on?
But I want to...
I get it.
But again, I don't... This is not, unlike some people have, this is not like a philosophical objection to pops. It's just that for me in my life at the moment, and the last thing too, and again, this is not, I'm not blaming Steph, but it was something that when we were first getting into it, we were really collecting them together. Because like before she and I ever met, like of course I had collected comics and statues and artwork and stuff like that, but I had never gotten any pops until we started getting them together. So it was really something that was ours. And I think as much as she still enjoys them generally, I don't think she's as into them as I am. And I don't know that I have enough interest to like generate the momentum for both of us.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get it. No, look, like I said, it happens to everybody, and like, or you thin down and you pick up the ones you want. Like you're probably in a boat where like almost all the stuff you have is probably worth like 5 times what you paid for it at this point. So, you get out or you thin it out, you buy some other collector. It's the life of a collector. I've done it a million times. It's all the time. So whatever. If there's ever something you do need, you know where to get them. But
yeah, you're always the go-to place. Actually, we've like really over the past year, we've like really been hunkered down. And like I said, working from home and all that. But I did go to Undiscovered Realm around Milo's birthday because we got a Stitch pop for his birthday cake.
Oh, cool.
But
I think, I remember you saying that. I wasn't there though, right?
No, you weren't there that day, but I did text you ahead of time and you confirmed that you had it.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. But I wanted to share this with you because I thought you'd get a kick out of it. So of course the pops, we've talked about it on the show, and it was a discussion point in the documentary, My Comic Shop Country. And so there are reviews of the film on a site called Letterboxd. And from time to time, I will check just to sort of see what the feedback is.
Sure.
And there was one that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to read this word for word. This is not, these are not my words.
Okay.
But the person wrote, no, they're on your side. They wrote,
good. Oh, good.
They wrote, what these bitches got against Funko Pops, honestly. People People could come in looking for them and leave with comics. Like, dudes, do whatever it takes to get foot traffic and stop being snobs.
It's true. I mean, it's the ultimate like Trojan horse, you know. We get all sorts of people in, and then they start buying all sorts of different things, you know. So he's 100% right. I get it, you know. There's always the purists, you know. It's like every store's got their rules, you know. I hate Star Trek. I almost never carry Star Trek. You know, there's no reason. It's money. People come in and buy it. They're fanatical collectors. I just you know, we have our rules, and we go by them. So,
yeah.
But he's right. You know, they're losing out for sure.
But I just wanted to share
That's
that.
pretty funny.
I mean, you essentially
like that.
I mean, you basically made the same point in the movie. You made it in a more diplomatic way, but that was the gist of it, right? Is that people could come in looking for that and leave with something else, and you can, you know, it's like why limit yourself? You know? If there is a market for it.
Exactly, and the general public, that's what they're looking for. They're not necessarily looking for comics or whatever else, you know. So you got to get them in however you can. Especially in that industry, you should be happy. You know, every dollar is like makes all the difference in the world. But hey, whatever, more for us.
Yes. Well, listen, I appreciate having you as part of this 100th episode celebration. I'm glad to catch up with you a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
It's funny because I know I've said this before, but like people have heard. If you take away our text conversations, people have heard the vast majority of the conversations we've had. It's like usually when we're talking, it's doing something like this. Do you think one day like you will just hang out? I don't like that ever happen?
Yeah. I mean, you know, truth be told, and this happens all the time. Like I have friends that I've had for 20, 30 years. Right. And like, I almost never see anybody unless I'm working. Like I'm working so fucking much. Like, sorry for cursing, but I'm working all the time. So it's like, I'm lucky that I get to work around a lot of my friends. Which, you know, keeps me from going crazy, I guess. But like, it's rare that I see anybody else. You know, I went to my friend Lou's house. We've been business partners for, I don't know, 13, 14 years. I've known him from, you know, 20 probably at this point. And I went to his house for the first time last week, and he's had it for like 6 years or something. It's like, it's just, it is what it is, you know? So, but yeah, I would be happy to hang out. You know, if you ever have something going on, you let me know. Yeah, maybe like, I was thinking about that too. This summer is coming up, like, you know, Jameson's birthday and stuff like that. And, you know, they should probably meet. They're the same age. They probably get along pretty well. So yeah, once you're comfortable being out of the house again, you let me know. I have a different set of, I've been out of the house since the second week of the pandemic. So this is nothing to me anymore. I'm so used to it.
Yeah. No, I get that totally. Yeah. But no, that sounds like a plan. So I hope everyone will check out Undiscovered Realm and Addicted to Ink, your tattoo shop as well.
Yeah. We didn't get into that. That was a fun 6 months. We moved. So yeah, it's been a crazy time. We got stuff to talk about next time. It's fine. But yeah, undiscoveredrealm.com. Please check it out. We have the cheapest prices around. Literally, we're not allowed to sell them any cheaper than we do. So you can't beat it. And we just started doing free shipping on $75 and up. So like we have everything. Stop on by. We appreciate it.
Very nice. Well, I look forward to...
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. And I look forward to future podcast discussions. So thank you, Chris. And now...
You know where to find me.
Yes. Time to meet our next guest. It is now time to bow before Lord Retail, a.k.a. Jermaine Exum, the manager of Acme Comics in Greensboro, North Carolina. Welcome, my friend.
Hello, it's just me. Good to talk to you again. I'm in that zone again where I hear you on the podcast so much that I'm not used to, okay, we're actually talking right now. This is a real active live conversation and not me just listening to you. So if it takes me a moment to respond, it's because I've forgotten that this is a live conversation.
Fair enough. In advance of this, I was reflecting on our in-person and virtual interactions. And, one of the things that always stands out to me, and it's such a fond memory, it's the closest that I think I'll ever get to like a rock star moment. But the first time that I visited you in person at Acme, there were, I would say, maybe close to a handful over the couple of days that I was there, a handful of people, your customers, who recognized my voice from the podcast. And that was the coolest thing. I was so excited. I mean, honestly, just to know that there were other people out there and people with no connection to alternate realities who were following this podcast and were invested in the saga of AR. That in and of itself was really, really cool. But then to just sort of be recognized like that was so much fun. I still remember that very fondly.
You belong to the world now. You belong to the world. Your voice it rings out in more places than you'll ever realize.
It's funny you say that, because I have thought about the fact that, you're a fellow podcaster. You do Acme Cast, the podcast for Acme Comics. And, so I'm sure you follow download stats and all that stuff. And so it's like, I have a decent sense of how many people are at least downloading the podcast. You never know exactly how many of them are actually actively listening, but I have a sense of how many people have downloaded over the years. And while I've heard from a lot of people over the past 6 years, there are far, far more I've never heard a word from, on social media or anything like that. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, like there's so many people out there who, just, listen, and it might be to whatever extent it's a part of their routine. I might never hear anything from them or have any interaction, but it's a part of, of their thing. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah. You never quite know in many ways what the feedback is. Sometimes if a thing goes super well, you don't hear anything, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means that in today's world, like if something's off, then you're going to hear about it. If something's going pretty well, you may not hear about it.
That's probably true. That just like, to your point, that day, I remember the season 4 premiere of My Comic Shop History. The episode went live at midnight. And then I remember at around 8 or 9 a.m. the next morning, I was at work and I got a text from you. And you said, hey, just so you know, there's a commercial that plays twice during your episode. And the second time is over the conversation. And I was like, oh, God. Thankfully, it took until that far into the podcast for me to make a mistake like that. And I ran home. That's the beauty of working so close to where I live. I ran home and I quickly edited and re-uploaded. But I forever remain grateful for you for listening as early as you did and giving me the heads up.
Yeah, I would like to think that, there's somebody out there that if I, made some type of misstep, they'd let me know as quickly as possible so I could correct it like it never happened.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, the only people who, if you downloaded it right away as you did, then you do have that error variant of the show. But otherwise, anyone who downloaded after, that 9 a.m. mark, they'll never know. Speaking of hearing feedback, Did Brian Michael Bendis ever watch My Comic Shop Country, which he makes a voice cameo in? Did you ever hear anything?
I don't know. I will ask him next time I talk to him. But I don't know. I don't know which comic book creators may have seen it. I don't know which customers may have seen it. It does seem, just to put everybody on blast out there, it does seem like more people that actually know me and see me on a weekly basis have not seen it than people who will get strangers in from other states. From other states will come in and be like, wow, I saw you on the thing and now you're like right here in the room. It's amazing, but it's also like the more people that see me in the store on a regular basis, maybe they didn't check out the thing. Maybe they don't know we've had a website since 1997. I don't know.
Yeah, that's always a very tough nut to crack. And, when I mentioned Bendis, that wasn't even to put him on blast or anything like that. And I will say, to his credit, I mean, I can only imagine how many messages this guy must get in a given day. And I reached out to him when the movie came out, because I, through you had gotten a screener to him. But I also did my own outreach when it came out. And to his credit, I mean, he wrote right back to me. This was, I think, over Instagram. Like, he wrote right back to me. He was so nice. It was really cool just to have an interaction with him. And I told him how much, I've enjoyed his work over the years. And I think what I said to him was, your comics have brought me such enjoyment and entertainment that I hope you get a chance to watch the movie. And if it can entertain you for, 85 minutes, that would really be an honor as someone who's read, his comics, so much over the years. So I hope, if he has or if and when he does that he enjoys it.
Well, I made a social media post this evening saying that I would be recording with you, and reminding people there's an Acme Comics podcast and there's a documentary. And he did like that post. So,
That's cool.
you know, without Brian Michael Bendis, there is no Lord Retail.
That's right. That's right. It
So
was
that's-
on his message board that you originally came up with the first time you really used that name.
Yeah. And his message board allowed me greater contact with publishers and getting into contact with creators like Jonathan Hickman super early in their careers. Like it really opened a lot of doorways for me. So without that, you have something, but you do not have Lord Retail.
Part of the Lord Retail origin story. It's it's really cool. And going back to your point though about, not knowing, exactly which creators and, might have seen the documentary. Yeah, it's interesting to me. I don't want this to come off as sour grapes at all. Like I honestly, I'm so grateful for everyone who has watched and who has talked about it on social media. I mean, I think that word of mouth goes so far. And I think, it really has helped a lot, in terms of, just raising the awareness. So I'm immensely grateful to everyone who has watched and everyone who's posted about it. And I certainly don't feel like I'm owed anything. That being said, and I want to get your perspective as a retailer. I guess it would have been cool if more shops, especially ones not in the movie, had really gotten behind it, because even if their individual store is not spotlighted, it's still a celebration of their industry. And there have been some shops, again, I don't want to paint with a broad stroke here, but yeah, I guess if there was anything I maybe was hoping for a little bit more of, it's, whether it's from the creative side or other retailers, a little bit more momentum from the perspective of this is our industry that's being celebrated here. Does that make sense?
Well, if I may speak frankly, which is why you talk to me, I guess, comic book stores can be weird places sometimes. And sometimes reactions and support and momentum, as you say, is not a quick thing. Sometimes, what do they say? Like a battleship doesn't turn on a dime, but neither does a really tiny comic book store. They don't turn on a dime either. They really don't. But your movie is out there forever. Movies out there forever. So, I'd be curious how many stores are hearing from people like, oh, there's a comic shop documentary. Have you seen it? That could be happening as well. So I don't know. I would hope for more unity and conversation and connectivity between comic book stores. And there's a little bit of that goes on. But it should be an awful lot more.
Yeah, and again, like you said, I mean, there might be stuff that's going on that I'm just not aware of. So, again, I don't want to generalize, but it's funny too. I do think about if alternate realities, my old shop, were still around, and if there were a documentary out there about stores that we weren't a part of, I don't see Steve Odo necessarily like beating that drum and getting out there and telling people about it. I would be very surprised. So yeah, I think that does sort of speak to, a little bit of maybe some of that resistance, or however you want to characterize it, that you do sometimes get from shops.
And, I ride that line of being humble where, it's super selective when I'm being humble, of course, but, I don't always mention that I'm in a Spider-Man comic. I don't always lead with that, even though the comic shop is the appropriate place for me to say something like that, because it's a cool thing. But I don't always lead with oh, we're also in a documentary when I'm mentioning, the stores on Twitter or Instagram, places like that. I don't always mention that. I could do a little more with that. And I mentioned it to a person today. Now, it was a part of a guilt trip combo. It was part of that, yes. But I did mention it to a longtime customer, and he said that, he didn't know about that. So he said he'd watch it today.
That's the other thing that always makes me laugh, because it's like, I feel as if I'm, relentless in my spreading the word on these things. And that yet, you run into so many people like, I had no idea that existed. So it does make me laugh. I wanted to ask you though, because I know, you've listened to episodes that I've done with other retailers, and of course you've seen the movie where that features many retailers. And I was curious, I guess a couple of things. First, are there retailers you've connected with specifically as a result of your mutual participation in the podcast and or the documentary?
A lot of those stores I already knew of. The comic shop in Delaware. I can't remember exactly how I know Sarah and Titus. I don't know if I want to say some of their just had a customer of theirs in the store today from Delaware, who remembered me by name. I can't remember if they personally were passing through the area or some friends of theirs were passing through, and that's how I came to know them. Challengers in Chicago, I'd been there personally, but I don't remember if I knew of Challengers or if I just picked a store to go to, or if I was just trying to go to as many stores as possible. But I already knew them. I'm trying to think if there was anybody else. Ralph from Las Vegas, I had seen him at retailer meetings all the time, and he always seemed to be one of these legendary old guard retailers. So I never really talked to him very much. I'm like, well, what am I going to say to him? He clearly knows everything. He's a veteran comic shop guy, but he's super nice. And now we chat from time to time, as opposed to me being too nervous to talk to him.
Cool. Well, I'm glad that you've been able to cultivate that relationship. The other thing that I was curious to ask you, so again, through the episodes and through the movie, we talked about a whole host of topics pertaining to running a comic shop. And I was wondering, is there anything you've heard another retailer talk about doing that you've tried or wanted to try as a result of hearing them talk about it?
There's always something. There's always something that you hear about, something I used to like to do years ago. I haven't really been able to do road trips in a long time. I've very much been landlocked here, not just in recent times, but something I used to love to do is to travel to a different area, be it Chicago or somewhere closer by, and just kind of see what's going on in comic shops. I think that's important as a retailer, that you've got to get out there and see what's going on in comic book stores. And that's not saying, oh, I want to surveil and poach ideas. That's not what it is. But if it's a place that you're comfortable with, you do want to introduce yourself and kind of talk about, oh, I love the way you're displaying this item. This had never occurred to me. You mind if I try this back home? You want to be up front and forward about that type of thing. But I think it's an important thing to do if you're able to.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I'm sure that's immensely helpful to, again, just to have that opportunity to see, actually be in the shop and really get a good sense for that. Of course, we're celebrating 100 episodes of my comic shop history. I know I've thanked you for this before, and I believe I did it on an episode, but it's worth repeating. I want to thank you for having me on Acme Cast after season 1 of my comic shop history. And, that was the first time you and I spoke. We had exchanged some messages, but it was during that conversation that you asked me, would I be interested in effectively doing what I did with alternate realities with other shops? And, the thought had certainly crossed my mind, but it wasn't something that I don't know that I even felt qualified for or interested enough in, because everything that I had done on the documentary and podcast front was so married to my shop. And so the idea of doing that with others was something that I really had to kind of wrap my head around. But the fact that it was something you were interested in and you were excited for me to potentially do, was definitely one of the factors that really got the wheels turning and set things in motion for what would ultimately become the future of the podcast and the documentary. So I really want to thank you again for that podcast conversation. That was actually pretty formative.
Well, you're quite welcome. And for anyone who knows me well, then you know that I do not remember that conversation at all. But I have been told that from time to time I will offhandedly say something important, like, hey, you should do this thing. You should slice the bread before you sell it to the customer. Maybe they'd like it already sliced. Just some offhand comment that ends up being a thing. So it's not that it doesn't mean anything to me, but sometimes a thought will pop into my head. I'll articulate the thought to the person and I'll just be on my way. But maybe they held on to that thing and they did something with that thing. And that's definitely important. That's a cool thing where if you're able to do a thing, I think you should do a thing. And I thought that you were able to do what you did with your store. There was something that if you took that to other places, talked to other places, showed other places, peel back that layer. I thought you were the person to be able to do it, and you did.
Well, I appreciate that. And, even before that podcast appearance, when I was on your show, there was this really interesting phenomenon where on Apple Podcasts, people, of course, can leave reviews of shows. And I started to see a few on mine that were from people in Greensboro, North Carolina, and because they specifically mentioned like, oh, this, the talk about the community reminds me of my store, Acme Comics. And like, there were a couple of those and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then later I was able to put the pieces together, and I have to give a shout out to a mutual friend of ours, Greg Schiegel, because if I'm not mistaken, and I know you probably don't remember, but I think it was Greg who turned you onto the show. Is that correct? Do you remember?
That sounds great. Because there's so many podcasts out there, so somebody must have introduced this to me. That sounds right.
Yeah. So Greg Schiegel, cartoonist and fellow podcaster, he and I met because I interviewed him for a documentary I did about a puppeteer who was a mutual friend of ours. That's how he and I met. And when I was first thinking about doing a podcast, he was so gracious. He sent me the most helpful email that like broke down what a podcast entails, what types of equipment I was at the very, very beginning of all of this. And he sent me this guide that proved really, really helpful. And, he's really become a great friend, and he's been on the show. And, I believe he turned you onto the show, onto this one. And, it's funny. You think about all the little pieces. Had that not happened, you and I might not have connected. And if we didn't have that conversation on your show, maybe I would have eventually found my way to comic shops across the country. But I don't know, maybe I would have gone in a different direction. You never know. So we got to give a nice shout out to Greg for his role in all of this.
Yeah, I live a very serendipitous life where sometimes little things will happen that will turn, butterfly flaps its wings over here. And, sometimes I wonder to myself, had I chosen a different comic book off the spinner rack besides Transformers #1, are you and I speaking right now? Or did we ever meet? Yeah. So, yeah, little things make a difference. Little things make a difference.
For sure. And then, again, seeing those reviews from customers of yours, and then when you and I actually connected and spoke and did that episode, it was, the idea that people at another shop were interested in what we were talking about with respect to alternate realities, and the fact that a retailer of your caliber, was so engaged with it, again, that definitely made me think like, okay, there's something to this beyond, just the microcosm of our store. So again, a really key step in this journey here. So again, I remain very grateful to you and to the Acme community for their role in all of this. How are things at Acme? Because the last time you and I spoke was for my Rejected by New York Comic-Con podcast special back in October 2020. So I know this is a big question, but generally speaking, how have things been at the shop in this early part of 2021?
Things are going very well at the shop. The way that I am, the way that I'm wired, I'm always like, okay, got to watch this carefully, got to watch this closely in case something changes. Got to really keep an eye on this, and let's not just assume because things are going well now, then they will just arbitrarily always go well. We have to really look at what's happening, determine why it's happening, and figure out if we can duplicate the success. So, back issue comics are doing very, very well. Vintage comics are doing very, very well. They're doing so well that as I look up onto our back wall where you keep your more expensive vintage comics, I'm counting there are 7 books up there, nothing over $75. Everything else is gone. There's a couple of signed books up there just to sort of fill out the shelf, but things are selling, which is good, success. But some of these things we can't do a second time, and that worries me a little bit. If we just sold this $700 Transformer, I can't do that again. We don't have it. There's no access to it. If we sell, the $300 prototype Sergeant Rock character from our RB at War, we can't do that a second time. So that concerns me just a little bit. New releases are doing very well. Graphic novels are doing very, very well. There's strong community support. Just today, again, customer from Delaware. We had people in from West Virginia that loved the store, left with several statues. Things are going well, and I think that we are representing the material well. That it's not just entirely, oh, if you have stuff, we'll get stuff. I think that we are still presenting what we have in a attractive way, and we're being good representatives of the comic book industry as far as, oh, you might like this graphic novel, or take a look at this item over here. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Then, I'll let you make a determination about it. So things are going well. I just want to make sure they continue to go well here.
I hear you. I'm glad that things are going well. And, as far as, again, those recommendations and those personal connections, I mean, I've seen you in action, and you certainly shine out there on the floor when you're doing just that. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear you continue to have the opportunity to do that. I was curious, over the pandemic, I know there are things, I know you really ramped up the mail order. I know you guys started doing, Instagram or Facebook Live sales, things like that. I was just wondering, is there anything that you started doing during the pandemic, or something that you leaned into more during the pandemic that really paid off, where you're like, oh, we always need to do this moving forward, even once we're out of the pandemic?
I enjoyed doing the live sales to a degree. Sometimes I was talking so much to prevent dead air that I could literally taste blood, which is not what you want. But, it was fun because Ray wanted to capture, not just like, here's a book, it's this price, next thing. I wanted to capture that QVC element. If you at any point watch QVC, where they would talk about the item, what's cool about it, what do you know about it, why do you want this thing? Those were fun, but we ran out of items that were significant or cool enough, in my opinion, to do a live sale. We ran out of stuff that was worthy of that. And I would love to do it again, but if I'm going to do it, it needs to be cool stuff by my standards. I'm sure there's plenty of cool stuff in here, but by my standards, we had some really cool items. Like somebody got a first appearance of Master of Kung Fu, at a stellar price compared to what it goes for right now. There's we're always looking for different things to try or revisit, but again, it's duplicating that success. Sometimes we can't do it a second time because we don't have that same item. We'll have a different item. eBay is going very well for us. Austin runs the whole eBay department. He does a fantastic job there. Greensboro was chosen as part of the eBay retail revival program, which is fantastic. The mayor of Greensboro, when she was setting up the meetings, had presence of mind to suggest that we be a part of it. We go to this meeting, see what it's all about, and that tremendous support, full support from eBay, even though that program is now over, has led to very strong success as far as people looking at what we have to offer. Limited edition variants, cool items that if they were on the floor here, not sure if anybody would really be interested, but out in the world, there is always someone interested in said items. Now, we do a lot of, even though local pickup is an option, we don't deal with a lot of local people. So we're trying to, in a lot of ways, we're trying to go back to basics, remind people we have a website, remind people that we have items on eBay. Sometimes you do have to go back to the very basic stuff and make sure that everybody knows certain fundamentals about what's possible.
Very true. And so I guess I would take this opportunity, anyone listening or watching, please make sure that you check out Acme Comics on their website and social media and eBay, right? Or what's the best place for people to go? Is it the website as a starting point?
Yeah, if you go to acmecomics.com, there's, of course, links to everything. We have exclusive products. We have a T-Fury link where you're going to see something new and cool shortly, as far as if you keep up with Acme Comics stuff. That's the best portal. It's updated weekly. It's been updated weekly since, I'd say, 1998. It's been updated weekly. I knew that we had early website presence. You know how lucky we were to get acmecomics.com to get that? But I just realized the other day how long we've had a website and how frequently it's been updated. That's kind of a thing. It's kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, I think it is very common to see websites just kind of go stagnant or dormant. So the fact that you've kept it going, I think, is really cool. Hopefully people will make use of it. Listen, thank you very much, again, for all of your support and participation and for being here for the 100th episode of My Comic Shop History. I look forward to future episodes. You know, so now you've been on the original two-parter we did when I first visited North Carolina, our Rejected by New York Comic Con special, this episode, the documentary. So that's a good handful of times now we've done this. What's your comfort level with what you and I do at this point after all of these? And I mean, some of them have been more like true interviews. Others like this are more of just a conversation. But what is your comfort level now after these various interviews that we've done?
Well, it's not easy for me to talk about myself. It just isn't, even when sometimes it's appropriate for me to talk about myself in the store. And I struggle with, if I don't talk about these things, who will? So in that way, it's still difficult for me. But fortunately, you're a friend. I know you. So it's like I'm just talking to you, and I'm not talking to the whole world. But that being said, maybe you could curate a best of Lord Retail, like special, link tree with our interactions.
We could.
I'm mostly not entirely. We'll talk about it after the show.
We could do something like that, and I have a feeling that people will be hearing you on the show again, perhaps next year. I think there's some stuff that might be great fodder for us to discuss, and I'm always happy to talk to you. And I don't know, the next time I'll get down to North Carolina or when you might come up to the New York area, but hopefully I'll get to see you in person again in the somewhat near future. But if not, at least we can do it this way and stay connected.
That would be wonderful. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and we have so much more to talk about. We have so much more to talk about that you're going to be like, why didn't you tell me any of this years ago? But yeah, please give everybody my best, literally everyone in your home and beyond. Give everyone my best.
Likewise, please say hi to everyone at the shop for me. Thank you again for being part of this. And let's see who we have coming up next.
I smashed my phone on the floor, so losing. That didn't last that long. I cursed his hands, just like my thoughts and voice and speech. I was a good man with his knife to his back.
Joining us next is the owner of Fat Moose Comics in Whippany, New Jersey, Sean Hendricks. Welcome, pal.
Hey, man. How's it going? Happy 100th podcast, is it?
That's right. 100 episodes of My Comic Shop History. Thank you for being part of this celebratory installment. And thank you for being part of the show. You joined us in season 3. That was your first appearance. And you've continued to make appearances since then. I'm curious, again, you've been on the show a bunch of times. We've talked about a number of topics. Do you have a favorite appearance of yours?
Wow. All right. So we're not talking about the video pods we've been doing. We're talking about just the actual My Comic Shop History audio podcast.
Yeah. And for anyone who has not been following, you and I have been doing a YouTube series called Comic Shop Team Up. We've done 11 episodes. The 12th episode, the finale, drops next Monday. So anyone who hasn't checked that out, go to the Anthony Desiato YouTube channel. They've been a lot of fun. They've been, 15 to 30 minute shots where we're just talking about life in and out of the comic shop. It's really been a lot of fun. But yes, I am referring to your My Comic Shop History appearances. If there's anything that stands out.
Well, you never forget your first time. The first podcast where you came here to Fat Moose and Matt owned the store. And you and me and Matt sat down in the main part of the store after hours, set up the little table. You set up your recording equipment. I was excited because I had listened to season 1 and 2. I was, as you remember, I was very familiar with what you had discussed and the people you had talked to. Matt, on the other hand, he was like, the hell's a podcast? Why do I care? I'm like, dude, just come with me. We're doing this, He was always a bit of a troglodyte. He didn't like to embrace a lot of technology, and he just was like, well, what's this going to do for me? I'm like, dude, just come on. But that first podcast, I remember it was springtime, perhaps.
Yeah.
And the store gets very muggy very quickly, but we had to turn off all of the air conditioning and the fans so as not to have background noise. And as the podcast progressed, we got progressively stickier and sweatier, and that's a good one that it wasn't a video podcast, because as we're talking, we're all like, yeah. So anyway, that one was a lot of fun. I enjoyed our ZapCon appearances, even though the audio got pretty terrible.
Yeah, the audio on
Right?
those was
Yeah.
rough. You and I made a couple of appearances at Zap Comics' own convention that they run. We did it 2 years in a row. Each time we did a live book club discussion, and I recorded it. You know, the intention was to plug into their sound system and record a relatively clean audio file. And, you know, I brought my recorder and various cords, and to this day, I couldn't tell you what the issue was, but it wasn't to be. So all I ended up doing was just placing the recorder on the table in front of us. And, you know, there's a lot of background noise because there's a comic convention happening. And so, yeah. The sound quality was quite poor, but, you know, it was still fun.
Well, the first one where we discussed Batman,
White Knight.
White Knight. Yes, that one wasn't bad because we were in like a little side room.
Yeah.
But the year after, where we discussed Tom King's stuff on Mr. Miracle and the Vision, we were just like smack dab in the middle of this gymnasium or whatever, and just the echo and everything. But they were still a lot of fun discussion wise. And that I was technically a guest. I was working at Fat Moose at the time, but I was a featured guest at ZapCon, so I got the like VIP badge. I could like go into the back room and grab a donut and whatever. And I remember both years I got a lanyard. So I'd bring them in here to Fat Moose and tease Matt like, "Oh, look at this! I'm playing for both teams. I'm a good friend of Zap. You know, if you ever get on my bad side, I'm just gonna go work at Zap." Now I own this damn place, so yeah, that's probably not gonna happen.
You know, it's funny you say that. I didn't put this together, but you took over as owner of Fat Moose Comics at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
At the time, Zap was planning that year's edition of their convention. It ended up getting canceled because of the pandemic, but they were moving forward, early in 2020. And you and I, and this is not a knock on them, but it's a fact. You and I were not invited back to do a panel at that one. And, I never thought about this before, but I can't help but wonder if it's because, what's the difference? You were an employee of Fat Moose. Now you're an owner. I hadn't thought about that before.
I could almost guarantee that was the difference.
Yeah.
When I took over the store, Ben from Zap, he called me. Like, I didn't even realize we had each other's personal cell phone numbers, but he called me. He's like, "Oh my God, I heard you're taking over. That's so great. I can't think of anybody better. And I wish you all the luck." And I said, "But do you?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I'm not screwing around, Ben." Because, under Matt's rule, the place did fine, but we weren't ambitious. He was fine just keeping it kind of where it was. I've got plans. Obviously, they were kind of, screwed with the COVID thing. But I said, "Ben, are you sure you want me to do well? Because I'm planning on doing really well. I got a lot." I said, the collection I'm sitting on, that's all going to be here." He's like, oh, yeah. "Oh, man, yeah, you're going to be a problem, aren't you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to be a big problem." Now, it hasn't happened yet because of obvious reasons with COVID and everything else. But we've still spoken since then. And, I'll call and ask him a question, or he'll call me. And we were discussing a speculator guy who got banned from Zap. He saw that I posted about this guy in my store, and he wrote to me. He's like, "Dude, that guy's bad news. Just ban him." And I said, "I will if and when it becomes necessary." And I still haven't, but I warned the guy. I was like, "I talked to Ben about you," and he's like, "What'd he say?" "Don't worry what he said, But yeah, that's the thing. I think it was, and it's nothing against them. It makes sense for them to be like, we should not have the owner of Fat Moose Comics here. Like the both years that I did the thing with you, I talked to Ben, and he's like, "I'm looking forward to having you there." He goes, "Just do me a favor. Don't bring any Fat Moose flyers or coupons or anything." I would never do that. But I think when I became owner, there's no ill will or anything of that nature. I still love Ben and Corey. But I just think there was a shifting of interactions where it's like, oh, this guy technically now is the competition, so we should keep maybe at an arm's length. but we're still very friendly, and I still recommend that store to people. If I don't have something, I go, do me a favor, go check out Zap. You know, what do I care? We're doing our own things.
Well, that's an interesting aspect to all of this because, yes, there is a fair amount of community and collaboration and cooperation in certain instances among, local shops, but there is an aspect of competition too that maybe some shops take more seriously than others. I have to say, though, I never posted this photo, but the second year we did it, I took a photo of the audience and at our panel, and put audience in. I mean, I'm so appreciative of the people who were there, but it was, how do I put this? It was not a robust turnout. It was my wife, my best buddy from law school, Jeff, and I think, wait, did he bring his brother? He might have brought his brother. I can't remember. But at least Jeff was there, and a couple of your guys, right? Were Justin and Dan there?
Justin and Dan were both there.
And there were a couple of customers, I think.
They I don't know if the scheduling was on purpose, but the show before ours was some sort of trivia challenge, and they were giving out prizes. So I think a lot of people attended that, like, oh, I can win stuff. And then after that, they're like, okay, I want to go shopping now. So it kind of left us high and dry, as far as attendance. But I still had a good time. You know how many gigs I've played to the bartender and the guy working the door over the years? You get used to, like, okay, there's nobody here. You still put on the show,
100%. And, again, to be clear, I'm so appreciative of the people who were there. And I've been in the same situation. There was a screening of one of my documentaries, and the audience literally was me, my wife, and one other person who was a producer on the film that played before ours. That was it. So I've been there. But
I remember you posted about that. Yeah.
But it's just so funny. And I never posted this, but the photo that I took of the audience at that Zap panel, it's a small group of people, and, they weren't posing for the picture, and we hadn't started yet. So, it wasn't fair to expect interest or excitement on their faces, but, and this might be my own projecting too a little bit, but they looked like so miserable or disinterested to be there. It was like, I could never post it. It made me feel awful.
Do you still have it? Can you send it?
I'll send it to you. Yeah.
Send it to me. Then I'll post it. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. But the panels were a lot of fun, and I wouldn't be surprised if, in some way, shape, or form, at some convention in the future, you and I will take the stage. I just have I have a feeling.
Have we spoken to the public about the possibility before COVID of the panel you pitched to NYCC?
Oh yeah, I did a whole episode about how I was rejected by New York Comic-Con.
Did, right, rejected by yeah. But I wasn't on it, so I don't think it counts.
Yeah, so I had pitched a panel to New York Comic-Con. Again, this was before COVID, but they ended up having a virtual version of their convention, and my panel idea was rejected. But it was to feature you, Gabe, who at the time was an employee at Torpedo Comics, and like you, is in my comic shop country.
Wait, sidebar.
Yeah.
I know that's how lawyers talk. Why doesn't he work there anymore? Was there an issue? Or
no, he just left for a different career opportunity. Yeah, he switched career paths. Okay. Yeah.
Just curious.
No,
cool.
no. And the third panelist was to be Mark Waid. Legendary comics creator and fellow My Comic Shop Country cast member. But, again, it was not, it didn't pass muster with the New York Comic-Con programming committee, so it wasn't to be. And I did an episode with Jermaine, Lord Retail from Acme Comics, at the beginning or at the end of 2020 called Rejected by New York Comic-Con. So I did talk about it, but yeah, there was that potential that you and I were going to be on stage with Mark Waid.
I lost sleep over the possibility of that. When you told it, and I was honored that you were like, well, if anybody you could have had, me, like, the hell, I'm nothing. So I was so excited. I even told Justin, I'm like, dude, you're my plus one. Like, we'll close the store that day. Like, I don't give a crap. You're coming with me. We're gonna do it now. But
yeah. No, listen,
everything's possible. In the future.
You never know. I don't think I would submit something to New York Comic-Con again. I've gone down that road enough times. Not bitter here, but just realistic. But you never know. It's so funny because I reached out to Mr. Waid via email, and he got right back to me. He always writes back very quickly, which is appreciated. for the times when I've asked him to participate in the documentary and on that proposed panel and on my Superman podcast. Lovely, we've had lovely experiences. And he wrote right back and he said that because I guess he doesn't always go to New York Comic Con, but that he was planning to go that year and he was on board. And,
he's an East Coast guy though, right?
Well, I believe he grew up in the Midwest, but he lives in California now.
Oh, he does. He's a West Coast. He's
Yeah.
one of them.
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, that was one that wasn't to be. But again, whether it's a large show or a small show, I'm not being coy. There's nothing that I'm like, I have in my back pocket. I just feel like there will be some opportunity. And no, of course I would ask you, listen, and this is a perfect opportunity to sing your praises on this 100th episode because, no, you've been
Go on.
You've been exceptionally supportive and encouraging, and you've shared the episodes and the Kickstarter and the documentary, and you've shared everything. There aren't many in your category of, the frequency and the enthusiasm of posts and all of that. And I know you tell people too, when they come into your shop. So, I really appreciate it. And it's been so fun, getting to know you in general and getting to know you through these episodes.
I can't turn it off, man. It's just, I don't understand why every person who was even tangentially involved with the movie isn't singing its praises to the heavens. Like it's such, what you did was so cool and so well done and so important, to show every aspect of it, the highs and the lows and a giant shop like Torpedo and then a tiny shop like mine, which wasn't even mine at the time, but just to be included in that, like it was so great, and I'm eternally grateful to it, and I will always support everything you do.
No, well, I appreciate that, and again, in fairness, a lot of participants in the movie, did share the word, but again, I mean, I think you really took it to
I'm not saying
another
they
level.
Look, as a musician, I promotion has always been a part of my life. I used to stand outside the Willowbrook Mall with Xerox flyers to hand out. Oh, we're playing this bar, and in 2 weeks, and like it's being a musician, you have to promote. And this was pre-internet, pre-Facebook, pre all that. Like literally going and Xeroxing out a bunch of copies of a handwritten flyer and tucking them into like Rolling Stone magazines and all your local newsstands, and it's the only way to do it. It's grassroots,
I want to circle back to your first appearance on the podcast because I thought of something when you were talking about it, and I don't know that we've ever spoken about this, but you made your no, it's a great thing.
Oh, okay.
It's very self-serving. But
like you kept passing gas the whole time, Sean. What the hell? No.
I've been sitting on this for years. It's time to finally clear the air. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But you came on season 3 relatively early in season 3 as well.
Yeah.
Fat Moose was one of the earlier shops that I had on the show. In seasons 1 and 2 of this podcast, My Comic Shop History, it was my buddies I had on the show, in pretty much every instance, certainly in season 1 when we were talking about alternate realities, and then season 2 talking about collecting, there were definitely a couple of new voices who joined in season 2, but still for the most part, it was largely, people I knew, friends of mine. And then, like I said, you were early in season 3, and that was, and if I'm missing anyone, I do apologize, but I think that was the first time that I had someone new on the show who didn't know anything about alternate realities except what you had heard, through the podcast. And it was this, because, Chris Wilcock was on season 2, and he and I did get to know each other through the podcast, but he had been to alternate realities. He had played Magic there.
Right.
It wasn't like this was brand new to him. But, with you, it was like you really met the store through the podcast and you had listened to the podcast, and it's like you knew all the players, all the cast, right? Despite it never having been there. And it was like a weird phenomenon for me where it's like, oh, like I can say Rich Roney and he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Friendship and fun.
Friendship and fun. It was a really weird, and I'm happy to say, I mean, it's been wonderful to have similar experiences like that as I've continued to branch out with this stuff. But that was really the first really significant instance of that. And it was really cool. And I do remember that for sure.
You're welcome. No. It's look. None of this would have ever happened. Our friendship, all the podcasts we've done together, and everything. Your cool Superman statue that I sent you. If not for the viral Steve, come on, that thing's cool as hell. If not for the viral Steve Odo rant from when he announced he was closing the store, he had this paragraphs long blame everybody rant that amongst comic book people went kind of viral. And that's how I first discovered it. And through that, through a little backtracking, I found that you were doing a podcast about the closing of the store. And I absolutely was enthralled by it. Like, I want to know, because, this store was always so close to closing. When Elon decided to move, it was like this close to being gone. And then Scott took it, but then Scott wanted out, and then Matt took it. And we know through multiple podcasts how close it came to closing before I took it over. So to hear the history of a store and the current thing of a store that's actually closing, when Pat closed Pegasus Enterprise in 2002, I was still busy out and about being a madman. So it upset me that he closed, but I didn't know the ins and outs of it. I never really talked to him about why and how and what's his plan moving forward. I was more like, shit, I got to find a new comic shop. But with your podcast, speaking with Steve, speaking with the customers, speaking with the customers' wives, even, like, I was like, really got a full picture of what this all entails. Like, when you close something that's been around that long, that means that much to so many people. Like, if not for that, to be honest, I don't know if I would have taken over this store. If not for your snapshot of what that store meant to your people and how much it affected everyone. When Matt announced he was going to close, I might have been like, all right, I guess I'll go manage a pizzeria, but a lot of this is probably your fault.
As you were saying that, I'm like, I don't know if I should feel honored or guilty.
A little of both.
A little
half
bit
and
both.
half.
Yeah.
Half and half.
No, but that's a lovely sentiment. And, it's funny because, I know now, I've gotten to know a good bit of the history of Fat Moose, and I've met and interviewed Elon, the founder and the original owner, and Matt, as you said, right, the current owner at the time when I went there for the first time. And so I am aware of that, and I respect those guys, and Scott as well, the folks who started it and kept it going before it went to you.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you've always been my point of contact for Fat Moose. You were you were an employee at the time, but you were the one who reached out to me when I was looking for shops to visit with season 3 of this podcast. And you were like, hey, you should come to Fat Moose. So you brought me in, and again, yes, Matt was, and I guess in theory, Matt was like the main interviewee for that first episode as the owner.
Sure.
But, you were there and you had the history with the store, and, now to see you take over the shop, and now you are the Fat Moose. It's like, it's been great to see it. But again, in my mind, it's like, and, I think other comic shop customers will identify with this, that, it's so much of what forms your impression of a shop is who you have that contact with. And yes, in many cases it is the owner, but not always. And even for us at Alternate Realities, there were like all of us, I would say the vast majority of customers immediately, think of Steve, the owner, of course. But like those of us who work there, we had our customers who kind of came to us, who we had
Right.
that, we had that bond with.
It's like a hair salon.
Right. Yes.
They may have, 4 or 5 people there cutting hair, but you've got this is the person who cuts my hair. Like, this is the one that and even with Justin working here, and he's here by himself only when I have a gig, otherwise it's he and I together. But when Matt owned the place, Justin would be here alone quite a bit because Matt had a baby to raise and everything. So Justin had, his customers who would come in and be like, if I was here instead, they'd be like, where's Justin? I'm like, well, I'm here. And they're like, yeah, Justin's my guy though, or there are customers that would gravitate towards Matt or gravitate towards me. And, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
You get used to seeing that face, having those conversations. And when Justin is here, sometimes I'll hide in the back to get work done. And I'll hear a customer come in and they'll be like, oh, hey, Justin, what's up? Oh, nothing. Hey, where's Sean? Oh, he's in the back. And then they have to come back and say hi. And then there's a 20-minute conversation. I'm like, I was really trying to get some paperwork done. Whatever. I'll have this conversation. So, but people get very comfortable. And even if you go to your local, and I know you've never been to a Quick Check, but your local convenience store, if every time you go, you see the same guy or gal behind the counter, and then you go in one day, you're like, oh, where's so and so? Oh, I'm so used to seeing this face in this place, and that's my point of contact, and that
Yeah.
it's a big part of it.
For sure. But like I said, so in my mind, I've always associated you most with the shop. And so, over this past year plus to see you take over the store and weather an unbelievably difficult period of time and still be
It's
there.
been so terrible.
And but
been
to
bad.
to be where you are and to be looking ahead to the 40th anniversary celebration of your shop. I know I said this to you when we did one of our episodes celebrating the release of My Comic Shop Country, but I see what you were able to accomplish. You and I were in similar situations, right? Where our shops were about to close. And for me, I honored it through the podcast and then the documentary. And I'm grateful that I was able to do that. There's always that little part of me that's like, man, I wish I could have kept the store going. And you got to do that. And it's been wonderful to see. And, I wish you nothing but the best moving forward. I look forward to more podcasts with you. We got cool stuff that we're cooking up for 2022. I can't wait to be there for your 40th anniversary celebration.
You better be here for my 40th, because not only is the store going to be 40 years old on April 1st, I'm going to be 50 years old on April 15th. So I'm going to combine those, because I want gifts. So,
yeah. And I'll be 30. I'll be 35 April 8th. So
35.
Well, it's a little bit of a milestone, right? And right in between.
Credit card debt older than you.
No, listen, that celebration is all you, and that's all Fat Moose, and I'm happy to be there in a supporting role and celebrate what you guys have accomplished there.
It's gonna be fun, man. And I appreciate everything you've done for me, putting me on all these podcasts and video, putting me in a movie. It's nuts, man. I've never thought I'd see the day.
Well,
I always thought I deserved the day, but I never thought I'd see the day.
Well said. Well, it's my pleasure, and like I said, I look forward to more friendship and fun in the future.
Friendship and fun, books and booze.
That's right. So listen, everyone, make sure you check out Fat Moose Comics in Whippany, New Jersey. And next up is a guest without whom this 100th episode celebration would simply not be complete.
Drowned away my past, put out the fire. I lost everything, became a liar. I killed you, nothing has changed, but I'm free. Fell to the quiet.
And now, at last, I am pleased to welcome to our 100th episode the former owner of Alternate Realities, Steve Odo.
Here I am.
There you are.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know 100 episodes. What'd you say?
I'm just doing two things at once. Go ahead. I can do two things at once.
All right. I know you probably figure 100 episodes, big deal. A lot of podcasts get 100 episodes, but I wanted to have a nice celebration here and to, of course, have you be part of it and maybe relive some of your greatest hits on My Comic Shop history, because you've been a guest on every season. You've been represented here.
I'll tell you that the fact that 100 is mind-boggling.
Oh, you do find that mind-boggling? I didn't think you would.
Yeah, I mean, it's a well. I feel like I'm Rich Roney. It's a tribute to you that you are so devoted to this. I mean, let's face it. You've got a family a family life to keep you occupied, aside from just professional life. That you can find the time to do something like this and still have the enthusiasm for it after all these. I mean, we're talking about years now, right?
6 years.
Yeah. So, congratulations to you. This is a milestone. I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Wow. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I'm curious. I know you'll likely say you don't remember the episodes you've been on, but do you have any favorites because again, you've been a guest on at least one episode per season, sometimes more. I'm just curious if there are any looking back that you're like, oh, like I really like that was my favorite. Does anything stand out?
Part of it is a bad memory. I think that one of the things that always will stand out is that one where it was you, Bill, and me.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because my memory's so bad, I don't remember if there was a fourth person at the table. But that was sort of like opening your heart to something you don't usually do, where you just really kind of lay it on the table. It's like, I love you boys, and always been proud. An unusual relationship that I'm lucky that you boys walked into the store. That type of thing is something you don't usually say out loud. Something I think most people would take for granted that the other person knows. But I was so glad that we actually said that, and it still chokes me up when I think about it. It's one of those once in a lifetime things. But I was lucky enough to do it a couple of times, and that always that memory. I don't want to say never went away. It just kind of fades a little bit, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That was a good podcast. I enjoyed that one. I don't know. I mean, some of them are just silly talks, but the beauty of these things is that we sit around because we're all good friends and just chat about next to nothing and have a good time every single time. It's. I guess I'm very glad that early on, I guess it was partially technology, but early on it was just really audio. And now, because of the technology that it allows you to do video, I think this is fantastic. I think the next step, of course, is for us to have things to hold up,
Yes,
and show off. What do I have? Michael Jackson trading cards. No, but it's because I think being visual helps keep the audience entertained. And I mean, I know some people like listen to these in the car. I used to listen to a lot of them when I was cooking, and while it is while you do have to devote the time to actually to watch it on the screen, I think it's perhaps the next stage, whether it's this year or next year or 5 years, but the fact that the technology is there, and that I guess it's getting easier for young guys like you to use. For me, I can barely turn this thing on, but I hope that it'll just progress to something a little bit more interactive, even.
Well, so interesting. So, I know for a while you had encouraged me to do video podcasts, and obviously I finally moved forward with that. I guess what finally put it over the edge, I mean, I do value your opinion. I know Chris Wilcock was another one who, was encouraging me to do that. And, doing my research, it did seem like video podcasts were becoming more popular. And I guess the thing that put it over the top for me was just this sense of like, well, if I have it on YouTube, in addition to the audio versions on the regular podcast platforms, having it on YouTube it's another way for someone to find it. And whether they then sit there and watch the whole thing, or maybe they, watch a few minutes of it and then they go and they download the audio version and listen while they drive, it's another way to catch people. And I will say, now that I have this library of video podcasts and I've been doing it for a while, I do like having the video versions, even just for myself. I like that it's preserved in that way. And I guess the other thing too, just like very practically speaking, I had to look into, because of the pandemic, not doing these in person, I had to look into these video conferencing platforms anyway. So it's like, if we were going to be on this screen, having a conversation, it's like, why not capture the video as well and have that, to put out both versions. So, it's been fun to do. I mean, as far as it being interactive, I mean, the platform that I use, it's called Ecamm, and there is a feature to do live streaming. So that's something that I might investigate down the line. I don't know how eager the audience would be to like watch it live as it's happening and comment, but I would be open to trying that. We do have the capability for it.
Well, we spoke earlier about Mark Hammond and Auya's live sales.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're not auctions; they're just sales where people are watching. It shows you a little number of how many people are watching, and people are just typing in comments and in a scrolling dialogue, and putting in their claims. When he has help, somebody else over there is typing in what the item is and how much it is.
so I think it's successful because people are involved and get to be a part of it, and it limits it to say about an hour, because you can't sit there forever and do this, but he seems to be able to draw a crowd, and it's almost like, well, like what it used to be at the store, where people just came and hung out for an hour before they had to go back to doing whatever they have to do. But
Yeah.
but he manages to keep it, and he always has little stories that he's telling, not just a summation of what the book is about, but he'll just come up with little things, and not that you should have a list of jokes to do as you're doing it, but the fact that you don't need it, because again, being part of a comic book store, as people are talking, the funny things just keep popping left and right all the time.
Yeah.
So that was just my 2 cents.
But
My
so-
12 cents.
There you go. But, so now for someone who, you really encouraged me, we'll put it that way, to do these video have you watched any of the video podcasts?
I think I started watching the Rich Roney one because of the Adventures of Superman.
Yeah.
I really wish you were talking about Mr. Superman.
We did in the second episode. In the second episode.
Oh, I didn't see the second.
We did.
Oh, I didn't see the second.
Now
episode.
there was a technical snafu with the second episode. So if you go to watch the video version, you'll see me and a picture of Rich. And a picture of Rich.
Oh, a frozen picture?
No, not a frozen picture. Long story short, I wasn't able to capture his video, so I just put up a photo of him for the video, just so that we still have the video. But thankfully, that's. It cuts both ways, because it's been somewhat frustrating at times navigating both the remote process and the video capture process over the past few months. But it's been interesting. There's something to it that I really do enjoy. I like figuring it out, and knock on wood, I think I'm in a good place now. But the other thing that I've accepted is that there will be times where things don't go right, and again, maybe I do have to put up a photo of someone, or maybe there's not video for something, and that's okay.
See, if it were me, I would have done a stick figure and just had Rich Roney underneath it and had that on the half of the screen.
Although it's funny, if there were any guest that we didn't have video for, it's fitting that it's Rich, the person who's so mysterious and averse to technology. It is fitting. Just going back to your favorite appearances, I agree. I mean, that season 1 finale with you, me, and Bill in the store, I mean, that was in the first cycle of the podcast, but that was the emotional high point of the show. I mean, that was as raw and real as you could hope for, and so cathartic. I myself as well. I'm so glad that we said everything and that it's recorded. That is very special to me. I will say, I think other than that, I think my favorite appearance of yours is in season 4, when you and I talked about our New York Comic Con retailer breakfast day. That was a very fun one. I really enjoyed that one.
I'm glad you had a good time. What can I say?
Yeah. No, it was good. It was good. I felt like your energy level, like we just had such a great back and forth. I really liked that one.
I guess. I guess. Well, that was your first conference, retailer conference, right?
First retailer.
Yeah.
Breakfast.
Yeah, I've done those so many times. I've gone around the country to attend these things. So to me, it was a burden to have to go to it. It's funny you mention that, though, because I actually still have the package of the freebies that they gave us. I got mine, and you gave me yours, and I sold mine, and I keep thinking, well, I should sell the other one, because it's like I'm not going to do anything else with it, but it just happens to be right here. So small world.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you had a good time with that. I guess it was not not so much the podcast, but the actual attendance of that thing was just not a big deal to me.
I know.
So it's like, I guess, for a lot of people, when they go to a convention and they meet an artist or something, and they're a big fan, and it's like a big thrill to meet this guy and get his autograph on some books and things. But like, again, I've been doing it for so long that I almost avoid eye contact with some of them because I don't want to have to say hello.
No, I know. But again, I think we really got a good episode out of it. I'm very happy with that one. I think our worst one was when we did Heroes World. And I only think it was, I mean, worst. I still enjoyed it. I'm still proud of the episode, but we were and we didn't realize this until after this. We were talking about two different versions of the store. I mean, so this whole episode, like I'm describing one iteration, one of its locations in the gallery. You're talking about another one, and I don't know. We were not like synced up on that.
It was parallel worlds.
Yeah, but still, it was still fun. No, I always love having you on, and we've done ones that are one-on-one, and we've done the group ones, and they're each enjoyable in their own way. Is there a type of episode, either in terms of format or topic, that you and I haven't done yet that you would be interested in doing in the future?
Golly, I mean, after a decade of doing these things, and between all your high school and college projects, that's like I feel like there's nothing left. I didn't even know what we were going to talk about today.
Actually, on that note, one of the things I wanted to ask you as we're celebrating 100 episodes, over the years, I've asked you to participate in various things, right? It started with that college journalism paper, then my comic shop documentary, and then the podcast. Which one of those, I don't know, were you most either surprised or, unsure of out of the three? Or did you have the strongest reaction to, do you think?
When did you write that play? Was that high school?
The profile of you or the screenplay?
There was a I guess it was a screenplay.
Yes.
Jeff Long was yeah. That one actually kind of surprised me, because I said, you know what, we should film this. We shouldn't just leave it on paper to have a good laugh. We should actually make this into a movie. And it was possible at the time. I think there was one line that actually stuck with me. And what do we look at? 15 years ago was this? The whole thing about the grading of the comic, I think it was. Mm-hmm. It's like, is it good? It's like, it's good enough.
Yeah,
that's like that. As a comic book dealer, it kind of stayed in my head, and it's like I always want to use that once in a while. But that was a surprise for me. I mean, the movie was a surprise. I didn't think there was anything interesting to talk about, but he made it into something that was interesting. Let's see. I thought that the Jay Mizell one was actually pretty touching, because it was a real reflection of what was going on in this guy's heart.
Yeah. And
I guess a lot of people. I mean, I know that nobody stays in touch with him. I talk to him once a week, and it's not again, as you get older and you start thinking, about what's important in life. It's like it's not the way you want to go, and it's.
Yeah, speaking of Jay,
it's really tough.
Yeah, I wanted to mention him because he's been on the podcast, and he was in my comic shop documentary, and then I did the spin-off short by Spoon, which thank you, and I am very proud of that. I've even though I made it, I mean I find it moving as well, and people do ask about him occasionally, and especially now that by Spoon, I have it up on my YouTube channel, people can watch it for free. So sometimes people will comment like, oh, like whatever happened to Jay, and. He's still with us. He's at an assisted living facility, a couple hours away. And I'm so glad that you stay in regular contact with him. I would say I'm semi-regular contact. Like, I don't talk to him every week. It's more like every few months, to be honest. And the intention is always there to call him on his grandpad. And then I always get sidetracked. But the times where I have connected with him recently, it's tough. It really is. It's just tough. There's a lot of silence. He's not as responsive. I mean, I'm assuming that's a similar experience that you've had with him.
Well, I mean, when I call him, he doesn't say. Let's face it. Again, it's a COVID-related thing. With any nursing home assisted living, he's basically it's almost like you're in solitary confinement in prison, and you couldn't have any contact with anybody, other residents. You only had the nurse or the aide come in to give you your medicine or give you food, but you're basically stuck in your room. And if you're not the type of person who has the ability to keep himself busy, I mean, he seems to have just had no interest in reading. I said, I'll get you a subscription to newspapers and magazines. This is a good chance to like catch up on all those TMC movies. But he has absolutely no interest in doing any of that. So it's like, what do you do all day? You know, you sit there and take naps. When I call him, he's staring at the screen, but there's actually no reaction, no emotional, nothing. I mean, I'm doing all the talking. Every now and then, well, because of our relationship, it's a little different. You know, every now and then I said, "Are you alive?" And you still get that silence before he goes, "Yeah, I'm alive." But that's it. That's all you can get out of him. It's pretty much my calling and telling him which of the of his stuff that he left with me, that I'm selling for him. You know, I tell him what I've sold, and it's like I'll let him know that I'm sending him a check or whatever, and I guess his daughter will cash it for him and put it in his account. But I don't know. I mean, it's tough for him because I don't think it's tough to talk to him now because I don't think he's all. I don't want to say he's not all there, but I'll tell. He's got 2 Judy Garland autographed photos, and for the longest time, for the past year, he's been telling me that the autographs are no good, that they weren't signed by Garland, but they were signed by Judy Garland's mother. And then last week he tells me that they're good. I said, "Well, they're not. You're telling me they're not good." And I said, "No, those are good." I said, "But you said her mother signed them." I said, "No, those aren't signed by her mother." So it's like now I hate doing his autograph photos, but that means I've got to do a lot of research into this and see if these are the real autographs or not.
Yeah,
I know like Glory to Havens are wrong or just wrong. It's like signed by 3 different people. You know, he has a few of them.
Yeah.
So
no,
I can't. And he says, "Just put him up anyway." I said, "No, it's a federal crime." So forgery.
Yeah.
Mail.
I know it's I feel I feel so badly, and because I agree. I mean he is confined to that space, and even under the best circumstances, I mean losing his wife and then moving and being there, that would be difficult enough, but then to be confined and to not have the visitation that like I went to visit him right before the quarantine last year. I went February.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I went.
Wow.
I spent the afternoon with him, and I brought him because I had the same thought. It's like I know he has a lot of hours to fill. It's like, what can I get him? And he loves classic movies, so I got him the Warner Brothers like best of Warner Brothers collection across the history of cinema, and I brought him that DVD set, and I spent like an hour showing him how to change the input on his television to the DVD player and put it. And it just didn't connect. And when I've spoken to him since then, I've always said like, "Oh, hey, were you able to get the DVD player working? Or were you able to get someone to help you?" And it's always no. And it's sad. I mean, I understand that like when we do talk over the GrandPad, like I just need to just talk to him and just like tell him stories. Like I know we're not going to have the back and forth that we used to, but for people who are wondering, Jay is still with us, and we love the guy. Now on a happy note. Oh, actually, going back to the screenplay, it's funny because I wrote that in college and I won an award for it, which was very nice. And yes, I did take inspiration from our life at Alternate Realities. I don't know how like it would really hold up. One thing I've always thought about doing, maybe at some point I'll do this on the podcast, is do it like a radio play. Like, I don't think I would go out and film it, but like if we bring people in and we read it, I might do something like that at some point. The great lost project of Desi. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe something like that.
Well, I think what was striking was the surprise. I'll say surprise ending. It caught me by surprise. I mean, I suppose other people would say I knew it was going to be like this, but I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it.
Well, that's good.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you. I mean, I loved doing it. It was really a lot of fun. And, that and the profile that I wrote of you, those are the two, pieces that I wrote in college that, really, certainly the profile, led to a lot. Oh, did you ever listen? Cause I read the profile as an audiobook episode of the podcast last year. Did you ever listen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not impressed.
I was like, yeah. I don't know. I guess again, a lot of this stuff is just kind of not background noise,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh yeah, I kind of remember this. And it's like,
Yeah.
thank you.
That was, last year, again, we were going to do this Homecoming miniseries about alternate realities being a vendor at Undiscovered Con, and that didn't happen. And so, I basically had, I had a couple of episodes of the Homecoming that were in the can, and then that just stopped. And so I was looking for episodes to do, and I was like, yeah, I have this profile of Steve, and I've put up the written form of it on my website and on my Facebook page over the years, so people have had an opportunity to read it. But I thought, as far as keeping this interesting for myself and doing something a little different, I was like, well, I've never done an audiobook. I said, so like, I'll read this. And overall, it was an interesting exercise. I wouldn't make a habit out of it, but especially since I had that product and it was a new way to kind of bring it to life. It was fun. I for anyone who did listen, I hope they enjoyed. It's always striking to me, and I don't know how you feel about this, but the fact that through the documentaries and the podcasts now, I mean, people all over, and it's not a vast number of people, but even if it's just a few people who have never stepped foot in alternate realities, like know the store, know you, know the Odoisms, they know the salute. I mean, I don't know. How does that make you feel?
Oh, I guess, I think we had a similar conversation where it kind of struck you that I didn't have the big emotional response that you were hoping for. I guess it's something I've never really thought about. It would, like, even the salute. Sometimes I think to myself, like, I do this because of the Shorinji Kempo background, the martial arts background. I don't know if people understand that, and it's. I'm not even going to go into explaining it, but I guess it's just one of my quirks. It's like I wish people understood the significance of something like this, but the fact that people, well, it's not just me. I mean, people know all the. It's like Sean Hendricks at Fat Moose Comics. Rich Roney walks in and Sean is yelling at him. You're the guy. You're the guy. You're Mr. Friendship and Fun. So it shocked Rich, but yeah, I mean, and the fact that I know that you're getting these little messages from people around the world who have watched it and it's entertaining, and I think a lot of other storekeepers could have watched the movie and say, I know exactly what he's talking about. So they feel that familiarity and comfort. So knowing that they're not alone in this journey. Yeah. But I mean, do I think about it that people know who I am? It's like, it doesn't matter. I like to be behind the throne. I don't like to be the one on front on the screen.
Mm. So he says. Yet he continues to participate, and I always appreciate it. And it's my honor to spread the gospel of SCO, and I'm glad, for anyone who has enjoyed it. So listen, thank you very much for all of your participation in the various projects. This won't be the last. I don't know when or where, but I'm sure we'll be podcasting again. But in the meantime, thank you for being part of this 100th episode of My Comic Shop History.
Well, thank you for always including me. I do appreciate it, even if I don't always say it. Okay. But and again, it's like whatever you need, I'll come running. So it's one of the things you never worry about stuff like that. Yeah, if like nobody shows up, I'll still come and talk.
I do appreciate. Listen, there have been screenings where it's just been you, so I do appreciate that.
No dead airspace. Don't worry.
Yes.
One take Odo.
One take Odo.
You haven't watched West Wing. You haven't watched West Wing, so you have no idea what that means.
It's on the list. But listen, thank you. And again, I look forward to the next time that we are podcasting, hopefully in person. But in the meantime, this was a lot of fun. And back to Dr. Bill. And now we're back with Dr. Bill. So
Hey, guys.
those were our all-star guests, Chris, Jermaine, Sean, and Steve Odo. My thanks to them. And I was saying this before, but really my heartfelt thanks to everyone, yourself included, of course, who have been guests on the show over the years. And especially in that first season, I know that one of the reasons people responded to it the way they did was that people were candid and unfiltered, and we got emotional, and it was raw, but I think people really responded to that. It wasn't like we were holding anything back. And I think that allowed for people to really feel like they were getting to know the AR community. And, and this goes back to the first documentary as well. The fact that the AR crew has been a part of this and has shared as much as they have, I think has gone a long way. But even beyond that, I mean, everyone who's come to the podcast, and this has continued, right? Because now I'm doing Digging for Kryptonite, my Superman podcast, and my Comic Shop Book Club as well. And, those podcasts involve homework. With my comic shop history, it's like, yeah, we get together, we reminisce, we tell some stories. With these other things, it's like viewing projects, reading projects, and it's just everyone comes so, like, I mean, to the person. I mean, like everyone. I really can't think of an exception. Everyone just comes prepared and ready to play. And, if I didn't have the material, this show wouldn't work. So I really am immensely grateful to all of the guests.
Well, I think everything you've done over the years has been incredible and inspiring, really. And you're really inspiring greatness in other people who participate. I mean, I certainly will tell you, I prepare every time, especially with that, when we did the Darwin Cook one, I was prepared for hours, reading and stuff. And I'm sure all your guests are the same way. And so I think it's you that is a driving force behind all of this. You have a vision, and you've really, over the course of the last decade, it's really it's been inspiring to watch and be a participant. So thank you.
We did not plan this ahead of time, Ed, but you were the perfect person to have for this. I'm loving this. This is great. No, I do appreciate the kind words, and there's so many people over the years who have reached out, after listening or watching the documentaries, and I try to get back to everybody. I usually do. And because it really means a lot to me. I appreciate if someone takes, an hour or two, listening to these episodes or watching the movies or, whatever it is. And, so I do always appreciate that. So yeah, the guests and the audience, a couple of other thanks. Earlier in the episode, when I was speaking with Jermaine, I talked about Greg Schiegel, who kind of guided me with how to set up a podcast in the first place. Doug Desher, our AR, our AR brother, he met with me at Alternate Realities, and we did that the first time I ever tested the equipment. We sat there around that big table in the middle. We had to, push some boxes away and make some space. And, we sat there with the microphones, and it was the first time I talked into a microphone with headphones on. And how most people, you don't like the sound of your own voice.
Absolutely.
Egomaniac over here. I'm like, this is great. I was like, I love this. No, in all honesty, it's not that I love the sound of my own voice, so people might think that is the case. But I don't know, hearing both of us in these headphones, going back to what we were saying before about just like the power of podcasting, there's an intimacy to it. And I do think that part of it is, again, having those headphones on and just being fully immersed in the conversation. We loved our AR dinners, no question about it. But you're in a crowded, noisy restaurant, and you're like shouting across the table. It can be a little challenging to like really dial in with somebody, and you can do that with this.
Oh, for sure. I oftentimes, because it's so exciting to be back at home. For me, being in New Mexico, and it's like I can't wait for Saturday night dinners, and then, invariably you're disappointed in the end. It's like, well, I kind of talked to Rich Roney. We were screaming in each other's ears for an hour.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
this is a lot of fun.
Obviously
we
haven't had an AR dinner in a very long time, but I've tried to make a point for the the last ones that we had, of like working the table a little bit, of like actually getting up and going around. And even still, you know, you might only have like a few minutes with somebody, but because it's like, yeah, otherwise it's very easy to go a whole dinner and you're really just talking to the people immediately around you. So
No, for sure.
I just want to say, as far as other thanks, you know, again, we spoke about the guests and the audience and those who helped me tech wise. I really want to give a very special thanks to my musical contributors over the years, namely Ralph Puma, whose song Evil Deaded you've been hearing throughout this episode. And if My Comic Shop documentary has any like theme song, I think it's that. That's the song that plays during that final montage. I used an acoustic version of it that he did for me in My Comic Shop Country. Like, it's, to me, when I think about like a music that I associate with these projects, that immediately comes to mind. And in the first season of the podcast, every song was one of Ralph's, and he's been so generous with his music over the years. Dan Pritchard, my guardian angel in Australia, he composed new theme music for, I believe it was like seasons 2 through 5, I want to say. And
very nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he's done music for the documentaries as well. He's been a tremendous supporter. And actually, episodes of My Comic Shop Book Club, as well as the original run of My Comic Shop History, is currently on his internet radio station, Slice Radio. So that's another way to consume the show. But I just want to give a shout out to Dan and to Slice Radio. And more recently, Basic Printer. Basic Printer is it's a band. It's the main guy's name is Jesse, and he and I came into. It was actually Ralph who put us in touch initially, and he gave me a ton of music for My Comic Shop Country, and then I've been using music of his in all of my current podcast projects. It's all been Basic Printer. So I really want to thank those guys. It's like there's a lot that I can do. I can't compose music. I can't draw. Like there's certain limits. So, you know, having people who not only can do it, but want to do it and are so generous with their stuff, whether they're letting me use something or they're creating something. I really do appreciate it. And artwork wise, you know, my wife has actually done the key art for pretty much every season of the podcast. The most recent one has been done by Philtastic Phil from Fat Moose Comics. So again, you know, just having that help. Kristen San Gregorio, wife of Mike San Gregorio from AR, she does the book club artwork. So, you know, there are other people who have, you know, helped bring this to life in various ways. And I really do appreciate it. And of course, my wife, I thank her every season, I believe. But you know, it's funny, like when we started, I think we were just dating, like we just got engaged when I first started the podcast. And then we've gone from, you know, dating to engaged to married to parents, you know, over the course of this podcast series. And she's been on the show a bunch of times. And, you know, she listens to me talk about this stuff more than I'm sure she wants to. Because it's always something. It's like, oh, I want to try this different microphone, or, you know, I want to make sure the Wi-Fi is secure, so I'm going to get a 50-foot cable and hook it up to our router upstairs. Like, it's always something.
Yeah.
And she's very patient and very supportive. So I want to thank Steph for
you can
that.
never thank your wife enough. No, she's great, and she also was like your I guess your number one, right, on the documentary, right? She went to every stop with you, no?
Yeah, she was there with me. And, you know, it wasn't just that she was there. I mean, she did the lighting, and it was just great to have another set of eyes and ears and hands.
Yeah. And,
you know, she saw multiple cuts of the movie as I was going through it.
She's a good sport.
She is a very good sport. And, you know, she gave us our son, Milo, who, you know, maybe in a few years for the 200th episode, he'll make his podcast debut.
That's awesome. Yeah, Logan was here. I don't know if you heard him breathing a little bit ago.
Oh, no. I didn't. I know.
Yeah, he was very interested in what was going on.
Oh, very cool. He's welcome to share the screen with you if he comes back.
He's already back in his room.
But yeah, so I wanted to, you know, to express my gratitude really to everyone who's been part of the show in any way, shape, or form.
I think you've assembled a great team of people. Really.
Thank you.
You know, the artists, the musicians, the guests. I mean, you know, great people who want to be, you know, part of this.
Chris Giarusso, who did our homecoming artwork for the short-lived our short-lived planned return to the convention scene before the pandemic pushed that
I heard
aside.
that's now kaput now, huh?
I think that's it. Oh, that's a perfect segue. Look at you. So as far as updates, so recently, Steve was on the Father's Day installment of The Longer Halloween, and then he was on this episode as well. And we talked about how he sold all of the remaining AR comics from the warehouse. The update since those...
Which was an anticlimactic story, by the way. I don't know what I was hoping for, but it wasn't the story I wanted to hear, I guess. It's like, oh, this guy contacted me. He's opening a comic store. I sold him the books. He came down with his friend. He packed them up. I was like, oh, that's it? That's the whole story?
Well, look, we love Steve on the podcast, right? But it's not like he comes in with the intent to entertain you. And it's the sort of thing where, like, that is a pretty major development, right?
Yeah, of course. You called me immediately, and we talked about it,
Yeah.
And that was the story after all. It's like, oh, all right.
Because, like, he could have really come in and, like, spun a yarn about, about how all of this transpired.
Anything.
Yeah, but no, he's tell it to you.
Very matter of fact.
Most matter-of-fact way possible. But that's Steve.
Yeah.
But the latest development, I don't know if you even know this. Maybe you do. He got rid of, or is in the process of getting rid of, all the trades. It's a done deal.
No, he alluded to that in that episode. So if somebody, is it Zap or is it
It's a done deal. I can't believe it, but all of the remaining alternate realities trade paperbacks, graphic novels, hardcovers, they are going to Skokie,
Okay,
Illinois.
great.
Yeah.
This is something that we have been, envisioning that he would do for himself for years. And I'm glad he's finally at that point where he's doing it. And it's good for Steve. Good for him.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Because he could spend a lifetime, we can all spend a lifetime and never sell all those books.
Yeah, no, I am glad that it's happening.
Yeah.
It's so what's
That's
left?
great news.
I mean, it's the toys and the statues and supplies.
I'm sure they're going to go the same way. I would hope. Eventually he's just going to get fed up or find that right buyer, which is good. I think that's what needed to happen all along.
I agree. Like, I think I know the answer to this, but do you have any sentimental attachment to, like, the stuff in the warehouse? Like, is there any...
There's one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing.
What?
I don't know if I told. Well, maybe you know, maybe you don't. So my first ever day at working at the comic shop. Brandon was one of the owners, and my brother had already gotten the job. So he got the job before me. I was trying to work my angle and ask for a job at AR for like months, and somehow, we and my brother would go in at different times, and he got the job. Brandon had given him the job, and through him, believe it or not, I don't know if you ever knew that, I was able to get the job. So Brandon hired me after he hired my brother. Anyway, my first day on the job, I had to check the statues that came in with that diamond order, and they were the Magog statue from Kingdom Come, and there is still one of them at the warehouse. And I just think that's a really interesting piece that I would love to have. And I told Steve that too. I said, don't, I'll take this at the very end, but keep it in here for now. But that was like the first thing I touched as an employee of the shop. So that's one thing that has a sentimental value to me that's in there. It brings me back to that first day.
Oh, that's really cool. You got to get that.
Well, I mean, but I hope he doesn't sell it. Steve, if you're listening, don't sell that. But I don't want it yet. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be like the piece that I take out at the very end. It'll be like the bookend.
Well, you just got to be careful because these days, all of a sudden, he's just like, oh, by the way, the comics are gone.
Yeah, it's a completely new Steve.
I mean, that's what happened with the comics. All of a sudden, there was a Facebook post. All the comics are gone from the warehouse. Yeah. So I don't know. You might want to remind him about it.
Yeah, I'll send him a message.
I
owe him a phone call.
Yeah.
After listening to that Father's Day episode, I feel like I owe him one for sure. It's definitely time to give him a call.
I'm sure he would appreciate that. And yeah, so we still have 4 episodes of The Longer Halloween to come. So this is not the finale. And we still have more episodes. And we have coming up for Independence Day. I'll reveal what the rest of our lineup. For Independence Day, we have Carolyn.
Okay.
And I'm excited to talk about her upcoming wedding.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
Steve and I were
Yeah, that's
surprised. We were surprised to learn about it and very happy for her. And I think it'll be great to catch up. August is tough holiday wise, but
What you squeeze in there?
well, going back, I went back to my inspiration for this, right? Batman, The Long Halloween. For August, they did Roman Holiday.
Okay.
So you like this? Ryan Holiday.
Okay.
It's the birthday of Steve Ryan.
I love it.
The
I love it. Have
last-
you?
I've had very little contact with Steve Ryan.
All right. Yeah. Okay. It'll be really good to catch up with him then.
Yeah, he was the last worker at
Mhm.
at Alternate Realities. What a legacy. But yeah,
He went out with the ship.
yeah,
He went down with the
he
ship.
did. But so he was the final worker at the store, and he and I worked together for a good while. And we've had very little contact. He moved away. Now he's kind of back in the area. But we've texted now, and so he's going to come on for the August episode. September, Labor Day. It's going to be I feel bad. It took 103 episodes, but it's going to be the podcast debut of Pete Dwyer.
Oh, cool. All right.
Pete
Pete
Dwyer-
is he's such a great guy. You know, I'm always happy to see Pete at the dinners. You know, we always have a great conversation. He's a good guy. I would love to catch up with him myself.
Yeah, I'm excited to have Pete. I mean, Pete was a longtime customer of the store and came out to dinner and, is very, reserved and unassuming. And, but he's been there, he's been there all along. And, is there anything in particular that you would be curious to hear from him during the episode? Anything that you think I should ask or bring up?
Surprisingly, when I talk to Pete, it's always about, we talk about his kids, because I think his kids also went to Fordham. So there's always a connection there as well. But, I mean, with Pete, it's a lot of just like, catching up, like, the day-to-day stuff. I think he's into a Batman. I know you've been doing a lot of like centric episodes on people's interests for the longer Halloween. And I'm sure with Steve Ryan, you're going to be doing Captain America. And so, or maybe Evil Dead. I don't know. He was a big Evil Dead guy. But Pete Dwyer, I think it was just Batman as far as I remember. But it's been so long.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. I am looking forward to having him on. And then you'll be back in October for the finale of the longer Halloween.
Awesome. I look forward to it. I really do.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Now, I had asked you this via text, but you don't have any plans, any travel plans in the near future, right?
At the moment, not at the moment. But you'll probably see me sometime before the end of the year. I promise. I already promised Rich that I'm driving to New Jersey and we're going to be hitting Fat Moose and Zap Comics together.
Very nice.
Maybe you want to come on that trip.
It'll
be fun.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I mean, so this episode, I mean, we're recording this early June and it'll be out June 15th, so not a huge time in between. I mean, there hasn't been an assembling of the AR crew since Rich Roney's birthday, February 2020, right before everything shut down. I've been kind of toying with the idea of organizing maybe like an outdoor meetup, like somewhere where there's a food truck or something like that.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I think that could be fun.
Has the climate in New York changed at all? I mean, in New Mexico now they're finally lifting the mask mandate for people who are vaccinated, and it's been interesting actually to get out again into the community. Is that not not the case in New York yet?
No, I mean,
I haven't been keeping up.
No, I mean that's pretty much been it. I mean, I will say, I mean, we're not going into restaurants yet or anything like that. But the store, and we don't. I mean, really, for us, like me and my wife, we really don't go in many places still. But place like we run into Starbucks, and people are still wearing the masks, even though they technically don't have to. And I can't remember with Starbucks in particular. I feel like they were one of the ones who did relax the man, because obviously some stores still do require it. But anyway, my point is, generally speaking, for the places we do go in or near, people are still pretty much masked.
Yeah,
from what we've been
I haven't
seeing.
taken off my mask yet. Yeah, for sure. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah. So, and obviously I've talked in prior installments of the longer Halloween about how seriously we've been taking this. So even to do like an AR thing, it's like, I'm still a little wary, but yeah, it would be nice to see everybody. It's sad because it's like, not only don't we have the store, but it's like, we don't even have the ability to do those dinners and everything.
Yeah. We're spread a little thin right now, but it's, everybody is.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, it'd be great to see you before the year is out, if possible. Yeah, that would be a lot of fun to do a comic shop road trip or something like that.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. And I'm serious. When you decide to go to Fat Moose and hang out for the day, I'm ready to count comics. Whatever you guys want to do.
I was, because Sean and I have been talking about that, and this idea of me doing a ride along and actually like working at a shop. I was thinking about that, and it's so weird because for people who haven't done it, they're probably like, "What the hell is with you guys?" But
yeah,
like there is something to counting those, like to getting a stack of those comics.
Spine. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do them in groups of 3. What did you do?
Oh, I would do 2.
Do 2. Okay.
All right. Yeah, I was do 2. Steve, I think, did 2s, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, that I don't remember what he did, but yeah, there's something about like it would. I miss that. Like I would genuinely genuinely be happy to get that stack of comics again and count them up.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a simple comic shop joy.
It's funny. You take it for granted, and then you don't have it anymore, and it's like it's all you want to do is count comics.
Yeah. Well, Bill, thank you very much for being part of the 100th episode.
I really appreciate you including me on this. Thank you, Anthony.
Of course. Thank you to the rest of the guests for this episode. Thank you to everyone who listened or watched. Keep tuning in for the remainder of the longer Halloween, and stay tuned for future editions of My Comic Shop history generally. Make sure you check out Digging for Kryptonite as well. My Comic Shop Country, available to watch on Amazon, Apple TV, and Curiosity Stream. So a lot of different options to watch. And most importantly, as always, don't be a flat squirrel.
Even death won't stop me.